Hello, hello. Hi. Okay, we're surely we'll be waiting for some people to slowly drop in here during the morning, as usual, as it is in these cases. However, let's get ourselves rolling. It's my pleasure to then introduce Annika, who will you tell us something about yourself before you get to the point. Yeah, exactly, so that we know a little bit more about your background. And to get us started, and then we'll go into the third fishbowl around the subject of shared tools. So, Annika, please.
Okay. Hello. Do you hear me well? I'm not used to microphone, so if I lose it, then remind me, please. I'm Annika Üprus from Tallinn, Estonia, and I'm representing a performing arts center, a venue, Kanoti Gildi saal. But I'm also recently in the position of curating one of our main festivals, which is Saal Biennale, but it used to be August Dance Festival. So when I got this invitation to be here, I was really excited. And then even more excited when I got the invitation to share something. And ever since last week, I've been actually wondering, what is it I can share with you which you don't know already or haven't experienced? And then I realized I can only share with you my own practice the last 20 years, which I've spent besides and behind artists, observing the scene and trying to make sense of it. And then I also understood that there is some interest to understand how it works in Baltics. Yeah? How does the independent scene of contemporary dance and performing arts function there? Which are the clever tactics or tricks? Yeah. When it comes to the Baltics, I actually have to admit that it's a clever tactical trick because I don't think we are that united. I guess we used that shield in order to get independent, to get back our freedom, and then to have the freedom to take our own paths, so go different ways. So this is why I can only probably represent or share with you more about Estonian examples. So generally, in order to put things in perspective, when you compare Slovenia and Estonia, then we have 1.3 million people and you have 2 million people, yeah? And I don't know how it is actually here, but we have a heavy legacy of state theaters from the Soviet period. So there are right now 20 state theaters which are fully supported by ministry. And they are mostly spoken word theaters. I had some more numbers. Among them 20, there are 2 independent or smaller venues or centers like us. So it's Kanoti Gildi saal, and there is one more which is Estel, which is more dedicated to dance. But I found some more funny numbers. In Estonia, there is the people are really theater lovers. So in Estonia, everybody can find a theater within 50 kilometers from their home. There are more than 2,000 people working in theaters. There are about 600 performances per year, and 200 of them are premieres. And in 2008, there were more than 1 million theater visits when you have a population of 1.3. So we're doing pretty good. But getting deeper into the contemporary dance or performing arts scene, then this is relatively short. It has a history of 30 years. So we started from zero, basically, in the beginning of 90s. And within these 30 years, these art forms have had to define themselves and prove themselves. So define in order to separate them from ballet or folk dance, to find their own identity, and in order to prove yourself to the audience, to the critics, and also to the funders. Yeah. And also, one of the goals has been to validate these art forms as equal to the giant theater animal. And one of the clever tactics in Estonia that we have used is that we extended the notion of performing arts as an umbrella notion above all different theatrical or stage art forms. which of course has pluses and minuses. So it also means that people can be afraid that the dance is going to vanish. But I also see more there the possibility that dance is equal partner. Yep. And then I was trying to, following the day yesterday and following the main notions of this event, starting from unconference and thinking of unlearning and different ways of co-producing, cooperating, shared spaces and good practices. Then I tried to think of some clever examples from Estonian 30 years of practice. And I realized there are not so many. But I can start from our own venue, which is saal, which was the first venue created in the whole region 20 years ago, which is mainly working with freelance independent artists, from dance up to performing arts, visual arts, music, and other related fields. And after existing for 20 years, by now there are 2 more stages like this. So artists finally have a choice where they would like to work or how they would like to work. Then I was thinking of other components of the ecosystem that is needed. And there is a good example of clever way of setting up a residency place, which is called Massia. It's an old schoolhouse close to the border with Latvia. And it's a self-organizing residency place. So it is a approval of that you don't need a lot of money to set up a place where creative thoughts can appear. And another part of this ecosystem might be artist-initiated tansuroom, dance space. It's a place where young artists can just practice, rehearse, and share their experiences. But these are quite recent developments, let's say. Massia is there since 2012, and this dance space for the dancers is there since 2017. Now I'm going to move on. I was thinking of some unusual examples of collaboration, first on local level and then with the closest neighbors, which is also one of the goals here, to think more regionally. There is one unique example of collaboration with our organization a couple of years ago when Estonia was celebrating 100 years of independence. All theaters decided to do a present to the state. So they decided to get together and have a lottery and collaborate with each other and co-create performances for every decade of the 100 years of independence. And with our luck, we chose in the lottery opera. So it was a very unusual collaboration between the biggest and the smallest organization. Yeah? The huge opera with the whole orchestra, choir, ballet part, and then us. And we proposed to the freelance artists to take this challenge, and there was an amazing platform of art, science, music artists called MIM. And they said, why not? We're going to do the opera. So that was quite a learning journey. And the result was that a lot of other theaters admitted that it's really hard to collaborate with each other because they are not used to. While we were actually really happy and happy to discover that we share a lot of passion and we can combine our tools and the very, very traditional opera tools of how do you create a production and how do you deliver artistic result. Okay. Looking further, then I tried to think of good examples of working with our neighbors, and I realized there are not so many, but there are still a couple. Also during this celebration of 100 years of independence of Estonia and Latvia, there was an initiative between New Theatre Institute of Latvia, led by Kundega Laivina, and saal, our venue, led by Priit Raud, that they decided to put together artists from both sides and produce a totally new piece reflecting on the independence topic. The First to Leave was the title, and it was a very nice and long and fruitful process. And it also included having a little format of festival, Latest, showing Estonian works in Latvia and Latvian works in Estonia. It actually has happened also earlier, but quite randomly. A couple of times in Latvia under the name Igaunia Balsams, and a couple of times in Tallinn under the name Läti Kama. But it's not a regular collaboration. Okay, going further. Besides the examples, when I was trying to contemplate on the topics of this conference, I realized that I had a lot of thoughts written down, which were already mentioned yesterday, which is probably a good sign that we're on the same page. But then when I'm really critical about sharing my own experience right now, I also realized that it's only based within the tools and within the ecosystem which was created 20 years ago or 30 years ago. So I'm actually also only having the same tools as you guys. And to be honest, then I realized the limitations of these tools a couple of years ago when I was challenged to curate a festival. So I realized, putting together the budget, that our thinking is very limited, that it feels like we have to follow the rules. And it also feels like we can't change them. And I wonder, why is it so? And I've also been worried that most of our cooperation and collaborations interests are driven by money. And I don't think there are enough funds which would encourage working locally or working with the region around you. And I wonder if there is a way how to redirect this. I also realized that the interest of West is very money-driven, and I came to that conclusion during the last economic crisis in around 2010-11, when the local artists in Estonia suddenly lost the status of new kids on the block, which you might recognize here as well. That for a moment you were really popular among the West, and then suddenly it vanished. And in order to figure that out, it took me a lot of years to observe and realize that it is actually money-driven. It's not about value, or it's not about sincere two-way interest towards the artistic thinking. So since that last crisis, I've been wondering whether we as a supportive body could rethink the way we work with the artists, so that we could firstly see what they actually need. What is it they actually need? Do they need touring? Do they need to go to the West? Do they need more space? Do they need more time? Or they just need to be valued for their art? In this process of trying to figure this out, for me appeared different important notions. One of them is the fact of self-colonizing cultures and how to be aware of it and get rid of it in our own thinking, not to colonize ourselves. And the other one has been the project temporality, where we all operate, which I think is very beautifully opened by Bojana Kunst. Yeah? And when we think of this project temporality where we operate, it tends to take away the present. It means that we are always projecting into the future, both as organizers and also the artists. And we never live in the present. And we all experience the same lack of time, basically. And it was especially curious to realize that also during the virus quarantine period, because we actually couldn't slow down. We kept doing what we are used to do. We kept organizing things, even if we didn't know if they're going to happen. And when I tried to reach any of the artists, I realized they are fully busy. They are they don't have more time. They were even writing more and more applications or keeping themselves busy. Yep. And I'm also curious that maybe there was something about the way art was made before the promise of the bigger Western art market came in. There was a certain urgency how art was made, and I'm wondering whether we could transfer it back into the current time to provide these conditions for the artists. And in answer to the question, which was most intensely posed yesterday or in the afternoon, about how could we do things differently with the tools that we have right now, I actually don't have an answer, because otherwise I would already be doing it. And also, I would propose, instead of looking into the future, to really be present in the present and try to figure out how we can give the present back to the artists. I think that's enough from me.
Keep the microphone. Hi. I'm just going to take the opportunity. It's a little bit different. We did, instead of just leaving Annika's words hanging in the air, just to ask a couple of questions, and I think that maybe also some of you, just to give the respect to the thinking that she's shown us today. I have a couple of questions. You mentioned some very good figures at the beginning around Estonia, numbers of audience visitors to the theaters, that there were 2 new dance scenes, one from 2012, I believe, the other 2017. These are important cultural, political steps that have been taken, obviously. Some investment somewhere is being made. Is this reflect that there is a greater interest from the audience in contemporary dance, or is it reflected more in a cultural, political affirmation of the art form without there actually being yet a full audience? That is the audience pushing the demand for new spaces, or is it the artists and therefore their advocacy to politicians pushing the demand and the audience is still following after?
I would say it's the latter. And it's also characteristic of the way how our venue was established. Because in the beginning there were little agencies who were dealing with contemporary dancers. But then by 2000 it felt like the local scene is ready and in desperate need of a place which they could call their own. And this is why, kind of observing the needs of the artists, our organization decided to take the risk and the responsibility to create the venue. And then within the next following 20 years, we have been trying to follow artists in the same way. And the audience has grown together with us, and we as an organization have grown together with this generation of artists.
Okay, I mean, because this is also my sensation, is that when we have succeeded in advocacy about getting space for, let's say, contemporary dance as an art form, it's not necessarily connected to an increase in audience interest. And I would push that over to the next question I have around the interest in the Baltics, because this interregional, or not interregional, but regional cooperation that you immediately responded to. I mean, there's a long history of the Baltic states feeling some kind of connection with one another. Is there still an interest in Estonia for art and art forms from the other Baltic states, or has the interest turned to other European and even other continents?
This is what I tried to put in very delicately, that we used the shield to get free, but
Yeah.
from there on, I think we have taken different paths.
Yeah.
I guess due to historical reasons, due to different religion backgrounds or different rulers from the history, our tastes are shaped in a different way. And I think it's the most easy, it has been the most easy for Estonian contemporary dance artists, for example, to relate to the German dance scene, while it's probably more body-centered or dance-centered in Latvia and Lithuania, but that's something that Olga can comment on later,
Okay.
how she sees it from her perspective.
Because one of the things that's obvious is that one would like to make connections to the Balkans and to the Baltics. But in reality, the Baltics are, first of all, the three Baltic states have very different languages. There is no, whereas in the Balkans, you can somehow communicate with one another across most of the borders. And you also have a long history of sharing, let's say, Serbo-Croatian as a shared language, whereas in the Baltic countries, the only shared language you had was Russian, which of course lost its status immediately in relationship to independence, or, I mean, because you don't, otherwise you have English as your common language, or?
Well, it couldn't lose its status because it was just forced on us.
It was forced, of course, yeah. But yes. But I mean, at least you could communicate. I remember meeting a very dear friend, an Estonian director, who said to me that he had fought for independence, but then suddenly he realized when it was over that now he was locked into being a director in a 2 million or 1.3 million population country instead of being able to work throughout the entire Soviet Union in Russian in here and there. And he suddenly found that he had put himself into a kind of prison. This language barrier, this would mean that contemporary dance would actually have a more important function because, of course, it's not dependent on language.
Actually, I don't think the language matters that much, but it's some kind of a shared experience or history of the Soviet period, yep. Which just recently some young Russian artists called it post-Soviet body. I really like the notion because it's there and we kind of share it. It's this weird Easternness that we share and we have to deal with or accept.
This is important, and I guess, excuse me for being, maybe I'm being a bit colonialist here or something, but I'll take the risk. Coming from the outside. I wonder when, both in the post-Soviet and in the ex-Yugoslav reality, and Romania in the post-Ceausescu, when are we going to get over this thing that happened 30 years ago? When are we going to enter into a kind of, because there's still a lot of discussion about we are bound by our political history, etc., but actually most of your audience was hardly born during before Estonian independence. Why does this continue to have such an important effect on the artistic world?
I don't think we get over it. I mean, it's somewhere in your backbone, in your DNA. It stays there, and I see the only way is to accept it and then move forward. Of course, the audience is young. But the way they look at things, the way they think about things, is shaped by the older generations, no?
Of course.
So it is a legacy that we and they have to deal with.
Okay. And then just to finish, I think you said two things that I just really want to put on the table here for the rest of our discussion today. One was changing the rules. How does this happen? How do we change the rules? This is advocacy. Rather than accept to learn how to deal with the rules. Okay, public funding is not functioning, they don't have clear criteria, let's just become creative entrepreneurs and go past the rules in some way. But in reality, we have to find ways of changing the rules, don't we? Have you found any ways of changing the rules in Estonia?
I wouldn't know, but I think I can start from the fact that now being in charge of the festival, it is actually up to me to change the way I write the budget and negotiate it, and how do I treat the artists or the other team members in the festival. So the power is in our hands in that sense.
Exactly, so we change the rules by just simply working by other rules.
Yeah.
And somehow that will become accepted. I think it's very important, this question of changing the rules, not just ignoring them. Not just trying to go past them, not being happy artistic anarchists and saying, I don't accept these rules. Well, you know what? You don't accept them, but they exist, and they block you. And if you don't confront them, if we don't find ways of dealing with it, then this is, again, cooperation. If we do it together, if we're doing it individually, if Annika is trying to fight some kind of budget rules in the Ministry of Culture all by herself, you know, it'll have to do with whether Annika is important enough or her festival is important enough to get a change. But in fact, if we want to change the rules for everybody, we have to do it together somehow. And really transnationally, not just within our own small nationalist realities. And the other thing that I want to underline that you mentioned is money. Money has been the driving motivation for co-production and for exchange. How can this be? How can we develop beyond that? Do we have other motivations? And I guess we'll get into that today with shared tools, but also in the networking.
I'm probably a hopeless optimist, but I do believe that some things can be also idea-driven or passion-driven or shared value-driven. I have a very small example. When we celebrated 15 years of our venue, we had a lot of brainstormings with the artists about what still matters. And among the ideas which appeared then, one idea was to change the way their art is reflected by critics or in media or anywhere, because they felt like the words are wrong. It's wrongly expressed. So we initiated a platform, online magazine on our website, which is running only by the passion of the artists and by their need to change the way we speak about things. And it is not paid, and it is an issue, and we always renegotiate it. But I find it super relevant that this thing is passion-driven, because it's our common kind of a mission to change it. There are other places where I can pay the artist or find ways that the artist is paid, but it is maybe a very tiny example of doing things in a different way.
I think this is very interesting, this contrast between passion and money-driven, because when we do co-productions, for example, or international touring, we were talking yesterday about the importance of it as an economic support to work. But in reality, there might be other reasons why Baltic co-productions might be a good idea, not because it saves money or gives more money, but because it has a value-driven concept.
Also, sometimes I'm in trouble perceiving this because we don't have any money to do the touring. So you have to find other ways or other tools, or it has to be a very clear invitation or very clear contact between the artists or between your colleagues, and then you find the resources. So there is no debate around whether how could I relocate the funding. There is none. So.
Thank you. That was. Would anyone else like to ask Annika a question before we go into the next thing? I mean, let's leave it a little bit. I'm sorry to be so informal and changing the structure here, but I think she said so many interesting things. I'm changing the rules. Yes.
Can I just give a little comment?
Please.
Not a question. The thing that is happening that I'm really afraid of is the change of the rules in the negative way that is happening really all around. And precisely, I think in our country, the rules now are that you have to be the member of the ruling party or to be visible or in the ruling party or in the political sense to sometimes to get some more funding. And this is what I'm really worried about. It is changing. Then the old rules were much more, how to say, just or much more transparent and much more better for many artists that are now, trying to get funding or trying to be visible. I'm thinking about this changing, of course, changing the rules to the better, but I'm afraid that the rules are being changed all the time for the, not for the benefit of the artist or culture or art, but in the other way. Yeah.
But then again, this is nothing new, no?
No, yeah.
From our early experience, we know, and it was possible to make art also then, also as an act of resistance, for example, yeah.
Well, we have also a colleague here from Hungary. I mean, Georgi, I mean, the rules are changing in Hungary radically, and it has not been to the advantage of the cultural sector, at least not its independence. But Georgi will surely mention this in terms of networking later on. You wanted to say something, Mojca?
Yes, about these rules. As an artistic director of the Festival of Contemporary Dance in Maribor, I am dealing with a lot of emails and offering from the foreign artists. And what scared me a lot that the email starts now, dear Mrs. Kasiak, we are sending the offering where the performance is very safe. And dancers are not touching each other. And I'm like this, what? It's Corona offer, you know? And this scares me a lot because these rules influence to the aesthetic of the work. And now this we shouldn't allow it, because this is political influence. It's not medicine's influence, It's well, that's how I think, that the reason starts from medicine, but now the politicians influence and rules our way of work, and also in the aesthetic way, not only formal, that infrastructure is not available and we didn't have access to the theaters, but aesthetics way of work, this scares me a lot, sorry, I have to say this.
I think you're surely right, and I think it touches on the word that Anneke used, self-colonization. I might call it self-censorship as well. And when you mentioned, for example, the very short window of opportunity that the Balkans or the Eastern European artists had in the West for a certain time, when everybody was trying to present, a Balkan or ex-Soviet work for a relatively short time, the question is whether or not the West lost interest or whether the East lost interest in itself. That is, if there was an adaptation trying to do work that would be acceptable in the West, and therefore the West no longer had there was no interest in it because it was not different from what we were doing. It was just developing, but more or less. But aesthetically, it was. So that's when we started turning to African and Asian, and because we as artists and countries want other kinds of impulse. Do you believe that there's any kind of this kind of self-adaptation going on?
Surely there is. I mean, we must admit there is this tendency. But being very close with the scene in Estonia, I would also say a lot of Estonian artists really resisted that, and then they face another barrier that it's not interpretable or it's not understandable for the West. They need to make a bigger effort to understand our artists. So this is where the problem comes in, that their interest
either you're isolated because you're so unique, or you lose your uniqueness, but then you also lose your
you become
impact.
Average.
Yeah, you become average, exactly.
But also, I don't think that suddenly all the programmers got interested in Egyptian art or African art.
No, unfortunately not,
yeah.
To be honest.
And it's really hard to explain that to an artist, no?
Yep. I mean, this is a really interesting question, this self-censorship. We do it as producers, we do it as festival organizers. We think what will get through, what will reach out. Now, this is good in one way, that you think about your audience. What are they interested in? Of course, that's our job as producers and festivals, to try to interpret what the audience might be interested in. But at the same time, we can start to do a kind of self-censorship that frightens me. And I know that there was a period of time when work from Eastern and Central Europe, when it was first coming out, it was really unique. It had another voice, it had another anger, it had another frustration in it that was beautiful. And then started seeing everybody was moving around. Dancers were walking up to microphones, they were dressed in black. Everything looked like it came from Brussels, and regardless of where it was coming from. And it lost its uniqueness, but I think that probably we've gone over that stage now, and the artists are trying to find again their uniqueness. Georgi?
We were talking yesterday, maybe this afternoon too, that I guess what changed is the freedom. Because if you look at back in the 60s, the freedom had a different meaning, because now our freedom, it's an organized freedom and based on subsidies, institutions, and so on and so on. If I can say that, it's marketized. So it's a dependency of the system. And then this is not a real freedom now. We slowly realize it because there's a less and less subsidy, more and more rules. So whenever I talk to so it's interesting, this pandemic, because many theater directors in Budapest waiting what the government or the, how's it called, the mayor would say. What's the rule, and we have to pursue, we have to obey, yeah, exactly. We have to follow. And I'm used to say that, forget it. I guess we have to go back to our responsibility. So if I want you to come into my theater, or let's say follow our rules, we have to find out, we have to be attractive, and we have to show a kind of protection or so very often what I can see in the Balkan, I have to tell you, I'm criticizing this way, and so we have to change. The changes means we have to change because we have a very bad attitude. We have a bad stance. So we would like to think the old way, like in the socialism. So we do not act. We have to act. We have to change the rules. And whenever I try to explain to my staff, finally I get to the traffic rules. So if the light is switched off, the traffic light, and you want to get to the other side, it takes longer because everybody waits to each other. But when the traffic light is on, it's much quicker. The people are not angry. So somehow we have to find this kind of balance anyway, but we have to find our disciplines. That's what I feel, but we will talk about later.
Okay, if there isn't anything else, I think let's move on now into the next question. Annika, thank you very much for me at least, very stimulating thoughts. It really got us going here, which is why I took the extra time here. If there's nothing else, let's invite up the people now and start talking about the networking. I mean, sorry, shared tools and what we can share together. So let me invite up onto the stage here. We have Mojca and also let me see now. I have to remember Olga. Where's Olga? Are you here? Yes, great. Olga. I ask Leah also to join us, please, if you wouldn't mind. Also, yeah, I think your experiences will be very useful. And I don't know if, and Sanya is here as well. Yes, join us, Sanya. And I don't know if Christina or Christina Leata is. Aha, okay. Great. So Olga, Sanya, Leah, and Mojca. Great. Please move your chair around here so we keep this idea of the fishbowl. I won't sit here. I'll move. This is the empty chair. Please jump in, huh? Don't be afraid when you've got something to say. But let's let them get started. Oh, sorry. I'm going to give the microphone first to Mojca just to get started. Just give us some thoughts around this question of shared tools. What can we share? How can we share it? What are the advantages and what are the problems? And when we say tools, it can be everything from an emotional tool or an aesthetic idea to a practical thing like a tour bus or lighting equipment or whatever. But let's try to find out what we can share. Let's make a list now of things that could be shared, and let's try to get to how some of those things could be shared among some of us. So we start to be as practical as possible. It's as Georgi says, we have to change the rules and we have to change ourselves. So this is where the change has to start, not by some minister of culture who probably will be dumped in 6 months. Mojca.
Yes. Well, I'm from Maribor, which is the second town in Slovenia, and I work as an independent artist, also dancer, choreographer, dance teacher, producer, artistic director of the festival. Many years, always on the field of NGOs, with collaboration of public institutions. I agree with Annika that what we can share is experience, yeah. And my experience about sharing the tools is that I learn by doing, learning by doing. That was my starting point. And because when I was little and want to dance, okay, I jump into the education program. Then if I want to make a performance, I jump into the organization program. But it was everything on enthusiastic level, So that's how I learned it, even that I studied in London Contemporary Dance School later on. But in Maribor is very hard. Well, sorry to say this, I hate this word, but it's true. Because when I started 30 years ago, and now, nothing's changed actually, When I was younger, I said, yeah, it will be better, it will be better. Okay, that's now my professional work, And from that kind of point, it is better. I'm living from this already from 30 years, but you know, from amateur to professional level, I really have to step by step. And I went also in the politics, local politics, because then I realized I have to step inside to change the rules. You know, I did it. So I was in the city council, and then I realized, Jesus, that's completely other word. This is no creative word, and yeah, it's about rules and facts, which was the great experience. But if you want to be creative as an artist, as a producer, it's better to step out, because it's a dirty business, sorry to say this. It is. And also with collaboration with the national level, that we wanted to establish a national house for performing arts. I also collaborated. So for 3 years, we did a lot of work with paperwork, with research work, you know, because we want to establish, we established actually with Ministry of Culture and with Municipality of Ljubljana, and I was in the group. But then the new government just cut it like this, you know. We had the opening. So this was the first example of the establish of the National House, which was very important for Slovenia, you know. And it was my pleasure that, an honor that I'm part of that, you know, but I was so disappointed after that, that one day, just this like nothing. We spent a lot of money, well, they spent a lot of money for research and bureaucracy, a lot, and for mobile practice studio, you know, which is now somewhere else in Ljutomer. Because we have a problem with this, not with the performance place, but with for rehearsal space, you know. So it was the mobile rehearsal space. So what I can share with you about my tools? A lot of experience on different kind of level, on different kind of fields, and. My experience when we collaborate in modern dance, it was the 4-year project in EU, and organization that I used to work in Maribor was part of that modern dance project. That was the best experience, you know, because I realized, as Annika said, this difference between West and East, between big and small, and I realized, what does it mean if you are director or artistic director, put from the economical field of work and you are running the dance house, or you are a director from the contemporary dance, like ex-dancer or ex-choreographer. It's very different, you know. They're dealing with different tools, sorry to say this, because the director who is managing the dance house from the economical way, it's a little bit different to approach to the art than the director. For example, I would say the Place Theater. I remember the Eddie, you know, who were previous dancer, you know, and he had a completely different opinion about the contemporary dance. So yeah, and yeah.
Sorry, just to keep focus, stay with tools.
Yeah.
What do you need? What are the tools that you are missing that you think that someone else has?
Okay. Yeah. From my local point is that the first tool is a process to convince the local municipality people that non-government sector is very important, because we have a really big differences, you know, in my hometown, you know. For example, when we host the European Capital of Culture in 2012, and we had a really big program for contemporary art, which I was on the head of this program. We got the different contracts from the producers as the producers from the public field. So it's really, how to say, ponižanje? Yes, thank you. You see? Which are the tools that some government, some non-government organization, we have to find the way, which are the tools that really we convinced that we are important and equal as public sector. And we are dealing a lot because some of people now also enter to the city council, you know, from the other non-government organization of the culture field, which is important, you know. So this is the tools from the political level, you know. That's my opinion. And we don't have infrastructure for the contemporary dance in Maribor, and we are struggling already for 30 years.
Let us move on to that idea, the second one, but you put on a very important question. Let's put it up first on the list. Advocacy tools. Tools of changing the rules. How to do this, how to speak, how to share. For example, I am sure that each one of you here have had a meeting with the city cultural department or the Ministry of Culture to talk about your project, to get your money. But how much are you working together to change the rules for the whole spectrum, rather than competition, that is me advocating and then you advocate the next day, and they can play us against each other. So advocacy tools, I think, are very important. Yes, thank you, Lea. That's a really great idea. There's a practical woman. Thanks. Yeah, but she's also practical. No, I'll just put it a little bit back. Yeah, great. Okay, Sanya, carry on. What tools do we need? What are the resources that we can or should be able to share? You mentioned beyond advocacy, you started to enter into infrastructure, so we'll get into that, I'm sure. But let's focus now on tools.
Yeah, but I want to say something before. We had a little rehearsal before, not a rehearsal, like brainstorming, and one of the things we came up was exactly advocacy, how important it is. But a few words are like how to be subversive, how in a subversive way to achieve something, you know, pack it up in a way that it is accepted, and then really do your thing. You know, that's one of the things. And also, I like that actually our young colleague said, hack the system. I like that expression. How can you hack the system? But I wanted to say something else, is that even though I will be in the, I will just risk to sound like Chancy Gardiner from being there from Kosinski, is that when I was thinking about oxygen and this water and soil and all these concepts, I was really thinking about the garden, you know, because now in the quarantine, in the lockdown, I was in the village, and I was very close with the nature, waking up, and very much aware of that it is the first time I experienced spring, really close by. You know, just as you say, we are running, it's always the next thing, the next project, whatever, working like crazy. And it was just a moment, okay, I want to stand still and I want to look at the nature. And so it's about tools. So what we need, this is oxygen. Our fishbowl is an oxygen one, isn't it? Air. So what is so important that we have? We cannot have polluted air. I'm not talking about ecology. I'm talking the pollution that we get through the media, through all the politicians and what we are pushed into the markets and stuff like that, you know, this consumerism. So we have to clear the air. There has to be a strong radical wind blowing to clear the air, to have air, to be able to grow things. Then when you have a land, the first thing you have to do is you have to take the tool of put on gloves, because you don't want to hurt your hands, and then pull out the weeds. So I think all of you should think, what are the weeds? What are the weeds? Are there some superficial thoughts and things that you really don't need, that you need to really focus on something? What are the weeds that we should get rid of? The next thing is you need tools to do something with the earth, to be able to plant the seeds. You know, and then when you plant the seeds, you need a tool, a water, you know, something, a bucket to water the seeds. So these are all metaphors, but I'm really talking about how to plant things, how to make things going. It just can't be in a polluted environment with a soil full of weeds, you know. So Yeah.
give us one. You said, I think it's a very interesting tool. Subversion tools. This is something different than advocacy tools. That is survival.
Survival,
How
yes.
to work against.
Well, I'm
But
also
give us some
going
more
to I'm
tools.
going to
Stay
sound
with
I'm going to sound a little radical, but we didn't mention it yesterday, but it came up to me. There are one of the things that we should really get rid of money as a system. But this is such a big philosophy. So I want to just give an example. In Italy, there is something, maybe some of you heard, the time bank. Have you heard of the time bank? So this is a tool, this is a resource that maybe we should also think about as an alternative. A time bank is a place where people share the most valuable thing they have, and this is time. And they say, I have this week, so many hours that I can give as a present to somebody, as a barter. Also another important word, barter, exchange. So then you say, what are your skills? And another person say, okay, great, so you know English. Can you please give me 2 hours of your English lesson? And you put on what you have as your skills, and then you share how many hours you have of something that you can share. Give a dance lesson, or I don't know, show something. So I really believe in these alternative ways. I hate the word market, but it is a kind of, I would say, more piazza. You know, it's more like a marketplace for goods, exchange of goods, and you give me your goods, I give you yours. So these are some alternative things I'm thinking about. As a tool, for example, when I was a very young dancer, my dance teacher and choreographer and the person I worked with took me as a 20-year-old dancer who had no idea about pedagogy, except that I was a student for many years in different schools or studios. She took me to a kindergarten and she said, okay, Sanja, now you will teach dance here. And I said, yes. And she said, I will show you, I will be your mentor, but you have to do it. You want to be an artist, don't you? And I said, yes. Well, you have to do it. So this is a tool of finding alternative ways that are connected to your work to be able to do really your work. She was really conscious in that moment, a woman who worked in between the 2 world wars. Can you imagine? She's a really old woman in the 80s. So she was already 70-something. She had a whole idea that you have to find a way also to find your bread and butter money and not compromise yourself, you know, not do something that will pollute the air and make weeds, you know, because you have to do something that has to do with your way of thinking or the art that you are doing. Okay?
We have a very concrete, sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, but I just want to keep the conversation going. We have a very concrete suggestion here, and this is barter, exchange. Is there a way that we can create some kind of exchange system that makes it possible to say, I can offer you some help on making Creative Europe applications, and you can offer me help in terms of technical design of a stage. Or I can use your stage that you used in your festival, which was a great idea. I can adapt it and I can get your drawings from you. I mean, is there a way that we can make this kind of bank?
There's a new book outside that is called Exchange Economy, which is already kind of...
Exactly. I was just going to give the word to Leah, because Leah, I think the one thing, I asked her to join us here after yesterday, because you have just returned back to Slovenia after some time and studies in the Czech Republic. And I think that maybe, could you tell us a little bit, when you come back here and you look at the situation and you're trying to establish yourself, what do you need? What are the tools that you need? What would you need to be able to actually help to realize your own artistic ambitions? I love doing this.
Sorry, but you're asking questions, Chris. We had the idea that it's like our own brainstorming.
I know, but I'm trying to get things going.
It was not like this yesterday.
Do it.
Tell me this. Sorry.
Right, if you don't want to answer my question, say something else.
Yeah, I will say something else. I don't want to answer this question. I am on tools. I will stay on tools.
Political philosophy right now. We are all radical people.
No, I will stay on tools, but I will propose one thing. We have here a list of sharing. I also want to propose a list of things that we don't want to share. And I also want to propose a list of things others doesn't want to share with us. Because when I was thinking about a list of things we don't want to share, I was also thinking I don't want to share art money with social project money, right? But then I'm thinking, okay, what the other people also don't want to share it with us is money. So I think it's interesting to look at those two lists as well as part of the sharing system, and that we all think of the things that we don't want to share, or do we want to share everything? Because, I don't know, for example, in theater, we already shared our theatricality with the politicians, and for example, the authenticity was enforced in it, as I kind of think. So
It depends, like, can I? Yeah, sure. I'm continue sharing, like, I would like to share my apples, but in my country. I would like to share my bread, but in my country. I don't want to eat all apples, the same apples around the world. I don't eat the same bread. I don't like to eat the same. I don't like to see the art the same in the world. Doesn't matter. It's made in China or it's made in Slovenia. This is, this is for sharing. And you continue? No. Tool for me, Chris, tool for me, stay small. For me, stay small. She understood me. I will explain. Can I? Going to little philosophy. Can I? Radical. Did you see live dinosaurs? No. Did you see live cockroaches and rats? Yes. They are small. This is one thing, just think about it. There is one country in Africa, I don't remember from when, they refused to use plastic. Only one small, it's previous Rwanda, now it's Rwanda, something like this. The country don't use plastic anymore, and already several years. Where we are now, in the States or in Europe, we are still thinking. It's about being small and being big. Coronavirus, Madagascar. There is no any, I think, death cases because they have their own vaccine, what actually wasn't accepted by World Health something. And now this share it in Africa. Madagascar is quite small. One thing, there was, and then I tried to go to this kind of horizontal stuff. Yeah. Are we vertical or are we horizontal? You know, same. Sequoias starting to, like we are losing. But the grass, it's still there, you know, like stay small. For me, yeah, when I understood like to be small, it's very good. But it doesn't mean, that doesn't mean like I'm a bad artist. It doesn't mean I'm a bad person. Because for me, but it's for me took really 30 years to understood small is good. In my country, we have like very nice stream now, being small, because Latvia, we are like, how can we translate? 1 yard owner. It's mine. It's mine. It's mine. Now we have many small festivals, 1 yard festivals, 1 lake festivals. Like it's a really completely personal approach to audience. Like if director organizes a festival, he knows all people who coming. It's, I mean, it's really small, but it's unique because everybody like it.
So let me just clarify, just get a clarification. What tools do we need to stay small? Because stay small is a concept, but it's not a tool. Being small is not a tool.
For me, the tool, to stay small is a concept and it's a tool. Because my festival is small. We do it already kind of 20 years. It's small. Low budget, last minute. And it's always changing. Because like if I plan it year before, yeah, I do it. I try to be very clear. I'm an artist doing the festival. But anyway, it will be some changings and 2 weeks before. And then when I understood, it's fine. Let's accept it and let's do it. Because you can do it because you are small. If you are big, you can do this. You can't have changes if you are big. The changes, if you are big, it takes, like in Ministry of Culture, 6 months. If you are small, I like very much my Academy of Culture because I have free hands. They allow me to do what I would like to do. If I would like to bring my students every year in the very cold and dark months in Latvia, where, you know, like Latvia, there's no sun. There is completely dead. Latvia is 1.5 million, just to know. 1 block from China, yeah. And if I would like to bring my students outside, because I believe you are a dancer, you are a contemporary artist. You are the best person in surviving. Because in my age, we still have no special place for contemporary dance. We still have no special organization for contemporary dance. Maybe it's my fault, I feel it, but I'm an artist. I share my experience. Like Latvian dancers, they can dance everywhere. They never ask for the big stage. Yeah, maybe the problem we cannot use the big stages. Yeah, this is another problem. Because you always back two sides. Okay, stay small and maybe do less. And flexibility, one more example from scientists about the flexibility, and another like my characteristic. I'm very chaotic, but then I was performing and inviting in the DAMU conference house as a method. Super, now I said I'm quite methodological person. What I would like to say, there was one, several years ago, one experiment with mouses. They put in one box mouses and they feed them 9, 5, 7. Very nice conditions. Very tack, very organized, disciplined, clean. And another box, they put another the same, different kind of mouth, but they have organize them completely different obstacles. Feeding one time, maybe not, maybe yes, maybe not, like very chaotic organization. And then they, sorry for it, they put on them this electrical shock, and what you can imagine. The first box was dead completely. The second was very happy. Scientifically proved, and not British scientists. Stay small, do less, enjoy the life. And the last from me today, I'm sorry. We are joining time, amazing time, artificial intellect time. Artificial intellect can do everything. I hope you follow the news. The question, are we still going to do art? Do we like to do art? And what the art could be? The thing in this artificial intellect time, they offer for the people still one thing the artificial intellect couldn't do. I don't know how to translate it in English, because in English it will be another thing. In Russian it sounds теплые отношения between people. Very warm relationship between people. It sounds very cuckoo maybe, but stupid somehow. But it's like this. Till now, artificial intellect couldn't do this. Stay small, from heart to heart. Do less.
Mojca.
And remember mouses and the electroshock.
Mojca.
Share mouses.
Please.
Chaotic. Smell the wind and go with the wind.
Thank you. Mojca.
I agree with my colleague. So from this point of view, stay small, because, yeah, I'm still small in my hometown. And no. I just want to say that from this point of view, I really respect this tool's flexibility. That one of my tools was if I want to survive, if I want to stay in art as a contemporary dance, I always had to find a way, always. So this is this flexibility, and I think this is very important tools, you know, that you are always so creative, not only as an artist, but on every level, that you find the way, if you want to achieve the goal. If you want, yeah, of course.
Okay, at the risk of appearing cynical, and I don't want to be, I think these are very important concepts, but I don't know how to share the tool of flexibility. I don't know how, I mean, my flexibility, I can't pass it on to Giga. No matter how much I would want to, if I'm good at it, he has to see it himself. So what are the tools that we need to be flexible? I'm sorry, I'm going to give the word to our new, no, I'm sorry, I have to give a word to... I was.
When? Do you dance?
Yeah.
No.
Professionally, no.
No, but do you dance now? Is it dance still it's yours in
Yes.
your body?
Yes.
This is important. And what I would like to tell is dance tool from the dancers. Find the balance out of the balance. This is the technical things what we use in the class. I mean, this is
Okay.
Sorry.
Please. No, fine. No problem.
Hello,
Thank you.
my name is Arkady.
I was going to say yes.
and,
Please present yourself. Yeah, thank you.
okay, thank you. So I'm from Bucharest, from Romania. I am from a country where in the last few years we changed 7 ministers of culture. So we cannot count too much on the meetings that we have or things that we ask from Ministry of Culture, because every time we meet, after a few months we have a new guy who don't know nothing about contemporary dance and contemporary art. They are very closed, and they are, as you know, everybody have this problem with the money, yeah? And the conference is dance money. And about the tools, I'm thinking, because 4 years ago, by myself, I rent a space in the center of Bucharest, and 4 years till now, I was working 18 hours per day to make it, to make a contemporary dance, choreography dance center. Olga was there.
Super.
Okay. And about tools, because we didn't have any support from the mayor of the city, of any support from government. I take by myself, and with my team, we developed this space. Now we have 10 performances in our repertory, and we have a lot of things that are connected to the dance. So it's one to be artist, and another is to pay each month a very big rent for the center space. We start to think how we can also sell what we are doing and how to get money to survive, to be totally independent. And I know that in each country we can identify different tools, but I'm more interested to identify similar, common tools, how to create an ecosystem and to survive when you don't have any money and any support, and when you don't wait, because sometimes I saw it was happen sometimes. It's not easy, but sometimes you need to prove that what you are doing is available. So because there are many artists that are asking and they want things, everybody wants to do a festival, everybody wants to have their own space, but it's hard to know what's in the back. So we start to think how we can develop this part of entrepreneurship and how we can create programs that help us to survive. Because the political will change every time, and we will not have this very, how to say, safe ground for a long time. So I'm very interested how you survive when you don't have any money from the state, from the government, This is my question.
Wait, sorry, just before you give him away, I'm sorry, before you get into conversation, I still want to get back to this with tools. I'm sorry, please let him answer my question first, Sonia, just a second, just to carry on, because you told us now you have a tool, it's a space,
okay,
and you're paying a lot of money for it.
Yeah.
How are you going to share that tool with us, or can you share it? Is space something that can be shared? Please, let's try to be as concrete as possible. Not just what we want,
okay,
but how we get there.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay.
I'm sorry.
So, First of all, I'm very open to make partnerships, international and also national. And our tools to survive, so we are running programs. I mean, we have workshops, classes, from performances. We don't get too much money, but we rent the space. So this is bringing us some amount to survive. And also we are trying to sell, to understand that what we are doing is not just art and just a performance. So we are trying to understand that this is also a product, and how you go to the market, how you develop the market, and you make them understand that they need what you are doing. And this is a tool.
Okay.
These are some tools.
Sonia? Sonia?
Well, I just want to say, actually, I don't know how to answer your question, but I have a lot of experience, because you either do it or you do not do it. There is no middle, you know, either. Yes, I agree. I washed the floor so many times. It's normal, you know, you go for it. I know that I organized with my colleagues a festival, and then we got from outside, the manager. I'm Sanja from Serbia, from Belgrade. I don't know if I introduced myself. We did a festival, and this guy came and he said, okay, what is my budget for the drive, for the taxis, for the catering, for the restaurants, for the hotel? And we said, we still don't know, we are waiting for the money. And he said, and you're still doing the festival? And we said, yes. What if there is no money for the taxis? And I said, well, I drive, a few of us drive. What about the accommodation? They will sleep in my couch, you know, so what, you know? And what will you do with the food? I will cook, you know, what is the problem? And he really refused to do the festival with us. So we did it again by ourselves. So it's about going for it. I just want to give another example, because we are creating this program, artistic educational dance project called Days of Smiljana Mandukic. It's about connecting with the heritage of contemporary dance in Serbia, with the origins of that started between the two world wars, with this Smiljana Mandukic that I had the pleasure to work with. So what we have, how we are upgrading, how we are thinking about the community of dancers. We have not a big budget, but we get a budget from the Ministry of Culture. So now we decided that this year we are going to give sub-granting. We will give a little way to invite young dancers and choreographers from Serbia to create a choreography, get paid. Many of them will be paid for the first time. Many of them will be visible because they will do it on a stage. But our condition is it has to be in a way connected to the heritage of contemporary dance. They have to study a little bit who was Maga Magazinović and Smiljana Mandukic. How did they work? Find some archive. We have archive. We can share with them, you know, study what music they used, any kind of inspiration. But they have to do the work. They have to make this bridge between the generations, and we will support it. And it's not a lot of money, but for them, it's a really big thing. So I think it's a starting step. And I think we all should think of how to give back to the community and how to involve the young people as much as possible, because otherwise they will be disillusioned in this crazy world that we live in, and they will just say, I don't want to do it anymore, you know, I just go and work in a supermarket as a cashier, you know. We don't have sponsors. We just get the money from the Ministry of Culture, but in a way we have a lot of sponsors, because the old dancers of Smiljana Mandukic that I have gathered, one of them makes fantastic catering. I mean, he's a man. So he's a man who was a dancer. He makes cakes and stuff, and he does it as a volunteer for the opening of our festival. Others bring their own alcohol or juice they make. You know, it's a kind of a community. So we have a community where everybody's sharing. We have people who have opened their dance studios for the old people that they pay, and they can practice or do Tai Chi or something, so they're activated again. So this is really a good thing. And as Ksenia knows, we have a wonderful space in Belgrade that's called Magazin MKM Center, Magazin Kraljevića Marka, and that is a very important open commune space that we share and that we don't pay for. And just it's a self-governed, so we all are involved in it. We do not clean it like you do. We give a little fee for the cleaning lady. But it's a absolutely amazing space. And can I just say one little thing? I must say that the young dancers now are in a much worse position than we were when we were dancing in the 80s, because then we had these Yugoslav cultural centers that were for free. You could have a space and you could train there or practice there, and you know, it was really, at least you didn't have to pay for the space. And now they have to pay for everything. So that is a big problem.
Okay, please, I'll let you speak in just 1 second. Please, let us try, because the examples are wonderful. I mean, what you are doing, what your festival is doing, what Olga was explaining, what you are explaining. However, how do we get there, and what can we share together? That's the point of this unconference in general, is to try to come up to... So one of the things that you both identified is space. You speak about magazine, you speak about linotype. These are spaces. Can they be shared? Or is it only a problem to share them? Because I've seen, for example, when dance companies have been given a common space, they end up kind of struggling with each other. I need the space now, you need the space. No, mine is more important. Can we share space? That would be, I would like to put it on the table because both of you represent spaces. Thank you.
So for first time for the students, for choreographers and dancers, we are trying to share the space for free, and to support them and to make them visible, to show their work. After, for the choreographers and dancers who have already a career, we are trying to make them understand that we are paying a lot for this space. We want to share, but everybody is supposed to contribute somehow. And we find some points of collaboration. So when you apply for a project, you put some money for the rent, or if you don't get the money, or if you don't have money, you can come to give an workshop and to leave your part of money to contribute for the space. So this is, how to say, barter, and we find this way, and because you know what's happened. Sometimes it was a situation, I was working in another city, and my few I was putting to pay the rent totally, and there were some friends, choreographers, that take a project, they have money for everything, and they ask the space for free, and I try to make them understand that I cannot work to pay the rent for them to be artists. So let's try together, friendly, to find a good solution for everybody. So they understand very, very clear for this thing. And
yeah, please, Giga.
No, just a small comment, not for this, no, just for the communication, because I think it's not the idea, what they're saying, it's not space actually, it's the knowledge of how you can make a space without having the money to do it, and how to make it sustain, or how to build a community that helps you to organize a festival. And that, okay. I think that's a very important thing. It's much more important than me going to as a dancer to a studio in Bulgaria. It's better if I make my own studio in my hometown and have the studio to work in every day, rather than go there 1 week, because this doesn't really make sense. But if I get the knowledge of how to make a space without the money, because I have the same problem, so I don't have the money to do it, or the money to organize catering or this stuff for the festival, and I have a knowledge of how to make a community, local community, to work with me, and not have to learn all by myself. I think that's very important. That's the thing what they want to share.
I think this is a very good comment, because basically what you're saying is that what we can share is the capacity and the tricks, if we say, about how to survive. And space is one of the things that all of us need, either as performance or as rehearsal. So yes, this is true. I just point out, for example, a networking, Trans-Europal, those of you that know it, Trans-Europal, which is built on how to manage spaces, how to manage spaces, mostly independent, even though they are, some of them heavily financed, some less financed, but they share with each other. How do we manage it? How do you manage a bar to make sure that the bar gives income to the space to pay for the rent? How do you manage ticket sales? How do you manage a booking schedule? Are there ways of doing it? There are lots of tricks that we can teach each other that all of you know that you don't even think is knowledge, really. You're just surviving. But when if somebody asks you, how do you make this space work? That's when it starts to become a tool. So it's a very good point you made, Giga. Thank you.
What I understand after 4 years is that I need to focus more on what I'm doing better. So I'm like to make dance performances and to understand what kind of quality, what kind of product I have, and how I can sell it to pay the rent and also the artist. And what I understand now is that I need somebody to help me to develop this part of the business. So to rent the space for some companies, for I don't know, for some small events that not affect our image or things, and somebody who are selling our shows to these companies. So the sponsorship is not the tradition of sponsorship is not so developed, but we can go to them with something that they need, but they don't know that they need. So this is, I think that I understand I need people who can help me on this part, on economical part, to have stability.
Okay, please.
Yes.
Nika.
Hi, I'm Nika. I am producer at GT22 in Maribor, which is a community. We are not really a dance community in any way. We host dance pieces as well, but it's a model of cooperations from different associations in different parts of culture that I would just like to present because I think it answers a lot of your questions. So first, we have a space. We have a big building that it was not built for cultural purposes, that we did ourselves, like literally we built a stage. Inside of the parts of community are amongst Moment, for which I work for. This is a theater association. Then we also have a movie association, contemporary visual arts association, photography, and so on. So what we do regarding sharing space is we have a Google schedule, Google Calendar, and we decided who gets which dates. For example, Wednesdays and Fridays, or Thursdays and Tuesdays and Thursdays are for movie. So on the one stage that we share, then we put on a projection and we present movie. On Mondays, Wednesdays, and weekends, this is a stage for theater pieces. Then we share PR. We have one PR, and each month one of the associations pays his salary. This also goes for distribution. We share technical equipment, technical stuff. Sometimes we apply on open calls together. Yes, we pay rent, but it's non-profit. First couple of years it was for free. We got it during, at the time when Maribor was EPK, European Capital of Culture, because the owners just inherited it and didn't really know what to do with it, and then it was used as a venue for exhibition. So then they contacted the guy and asked him if he would like to continue, and then he saw the opportunity to connect different, to fill in a lack of space and also the program happening in Maribor, and invited different associations to make a program together. But now we pay non-profit rent. I think this is, in terms of money, it's €1 per square meter.
You know, I think it's, I want to speak more about the Space magazine, how we organize the PR and photo and the other. So we have working groups, and it's all volunteers. It's all of us who are using, the regular people who are using magazine. And we, in our teams, we do the PR, the photography, who has affinity for what, you know. And the people join the team. We have a technical team of people who know a little bit more about technical stuff, and so they take care about this. So it's really it's a barter. You use the space for free, but on the other hand, you invest your time, your expertise, and your work for free, for the common good of the space. And I think this is really an amazing model. It reminds me of samoupravljanje, you know, it is the self-government that we had in Yugoslavia, because we have a coordinator that rotates, you know, every month, or I think we said maybe every 2 months, that is there in charge, and we have an open calendar, the same thing, but now we have like a code, password, how to get it, because it was a little bit of chaos, so now it's better, you know. And we have the coordinator is the one that it's completely open for other people too. If they want to use for a debate, a round table or something, they can join in, and they can just ask the coordinator, is there a slot that's free? Maybe Ksenia can tell more about magazine.
I just wanted to say something, a little thing about magazine, because there was this notion that when there's a common space, people tend to get in fights. We had these situations in magazine where we have a fairly clear system how the space is used, but the whole idea of the space is that it cannot be used for commercial uses, so there are no I don't know, Nike commercials being filmed in the space because it's like an old kind of rustic. It used to be a storage space. So what we did is, and I think this is the basis of everything, when people start working together in all of these tools, I think it's super important to kind of prior to implementing something, or if you have a space but you're not organized, and then you don't know how to create models of functioning, models of organization, because this is not your field, then what we did is we had the space for a long time, and it was illegal. And then we, it's a long story, I'm not going to get into that. But the whole idea was that if we have like an assembly of users, of the people using the space, and if we agree on something, it has to be done. So in this sense, we had a new organization coming in that was completely not a commercial, not a for-profit kind of venture, but it was something that was simply differently. Their model of functioning was different than any of the organizations that were using magazine. And we had this situation where they were so many, they were like 50 people, and all of the other users of magazine were basically 30. So we had a situation where they wanted to privatize a part of the space because they invested their own, not money, but their own time. Like it was a kind of a solitary venture for them when making a new stage. So what we did is we made it very clear that we cannot have this type of 50 against 30 situation, that every organization, every user has to have 1 or maybe 2 representatives, and they can come to the assembly, and then at the assembly we can talk what is the issue. So in this sense, I think when you work together, and if you have a clear system, fights are, of course there are conflicts. Of course there are, but I think that the way that you deal with them is not by trying to privatize something or looking at your own interest, but it is in the common interest of everyone. And I think, that's basically the premise of any type of common good. If you look at the commons, it's basically about having a good and then agreeing on how to use it by the users and not by someone coming from I don't know where. So I think that this is one of the things that is very necessary, is to talk about things and to make them clear. Because if something is understood, or if it's like, yeah, but we thought that this was like this, but then you're going to have, these are unsolvable conflicts. But I think if people talk about things, everything can be managed.
Okay, Mojca, you're next. What you point out here, I think, is something really important, and that is organizational tools. What can we learn from each other? How do you manage this democratic process? How do you manage the running of your space? And it might be interesting to consider, as one of the results of this meeting, is to find some kind of online possibility. It's very simple today to put together a simple website, or it can be a Facebook group or whatever, but where we share organizational formats. How are we organized? What is it? And I don't mean about the legal, whether you are a cooperative or a not-for-profit or all of this, because this is different in every country. But how do we manage, for example, the kind of, let's say, that Ksenia was talking about, when you have a group of people and they're supposed to, how do you organize it? I mean, because we first jump on the first simple things, democracy, one vote, one person. And this usually ends up getting fucked up. We need another kind of system for sharing. And whatever you do in Belgrade to share your space will be useful in Maribor to share your space. Or maybe not, but at least we can learn about it. So it's a tool, organizational tools. Mojca, you are last because we're arriving at the time. We have to take a break before we go on so that we'll have time for lunch later and everything.
Actually, I just wanted to say, with these good examples from Maribor and Belgrade, I just wanted to say, first we have to check what are our common interests. Then, for example, because GT22 is really good example from Maribor, that they starts from common interests, and then with open communication, with good organization, of the tools, and of course flexibility, because they're all from non-government sectors, and it's always this problem: who will have time, and how about money? But it's a good example that they're running the house, and they're inviting all the other organization, which is very important, that you are still open, which GT22 is open, very open. And these are tools, for example, like that we are sharing our knowledge, which is very important to each other, and flexibility, and that we are sharing the tools through experience, because as I said at the beginning, everything is learning by doing.
Okay. Anyone have any last comments around this question? I think we came some distance in this shared tools thing. It's a much bigger spectrum than Leah. Yes, one last comment here from Leah, please. Thank you. Yeah, of course you do.
Actually, I would like to answer the question from before.
Okay.
But first of all, I would just like to comment on two things. You asked before how you share elasticity, and I think that art or theater or dance is a way of thinking, but you need to show, not tell, to people how to think. And I think how to share elasticity with others is that you need to lead by example, and it's not talking, it's also doing. And as you said, you get your hands dirty. Then just to being small, I think, so I don't know if it's a tool like, like a way of thinking, sharing the way of thinking. Awareness, yeah, and then with being small, I think also we need to share, the tool that we need to share is resistance, because if there is a growth on one side and then degrowth on the other side, I think you need to, there is a constant competition, and we need to compete, right? We get far by competing, I think. And the last thing that answer your question, what I need as an emerging artist, to what tool, and actually it's an art parent, somebody who takes you under the wings and say, okay, under the roof. It's not a mentor. I think it's like a parent organization who give you space, not just space in like a space, but also space, because space is also between people, and give you an opportunity, somebody who believes in that you will do something, right? And that you get support, because if you don't have a support as an emerging artist, I can work as a waiter or like as a, I don't know, and I cannot make my own art because I don't have a support and I don't get funded, and then we live in a circle. So I think one of the tools...
When you have to find the tools how to get support. Yeah. That's very important.
I just would like to add something. because we never talk about, very often I can hear it also in Hungary. So for the institutions, whatever institutions you have, your budget split up two parts. One, what you have as a budget. The other part, what the artists they get. And it's very important in the collaboration. So we have to take it as a partner. The partnership is not so good when there's a strong competition. You know, so to stay small, it's a very big challenge anyway, because the competition is based on evolution. Evolution in the nature, in the universe, and so on and so on. So everybody wants to grow. It's a big danger. It's not grow, it's stagnation anyway. So you can stay on the same level. Yeah.
It's not the same level. No, talk about
Yeah. So I understand what you said, but anyway, I can see many Hungarian artists who have been doing for 10 years this one. And it's stagnation, and it's, the other question is that the community, what does it mean, a community for us? Because I guess from the very first moment we have to think in the community. In Hungary, for example, for me that was basic. We have to provide free access to spaces, because that's the entering point for the amateurs or the professionals to make a piece.
Two last comments, and then we have to break for
just a word, actually, because you say resistance, and I add persistence. You know, we were talking about emerging artists, established artists, and it is really about persistence. No matter what, go on. Maybe this year it's hard, you do it with your muscles or with a lot of force. Next year it will maybe be better. You know, just to persist, and then things will change.
And Nika?
I would just like to answer the question of if you need what tool you need, how to get it. Find somebody who has it and ask them. For example, we need residency space to accommodate guest artists who are not Maribor based. Puppet Theatre in Maribor, which is 20 meters, okay, not 20, but let's say 200 meters away, has a lot of residency apartments in their own building. We have a deal with them that when they're free and we need them, we can get them for free, because they also don't pay rent, you know. So, like that.
I think this is an excellent finish to this thing. When you know you need something and you know someone has it, ask. That's what we're trying to do here. Let's ask each other. What do you have? What do I need? Now, in order to do that, I have to be able to know what you have as well. You have to make it available to us in some way, and I have to admit what I need and not pretend that I have something when I don't have it. So. We need a break now. Okay. Thank you. We'll take a coffee break. Exactly. Maybe we can shorten it a little bit just to not get too late. It's almost 12 now. At 20 after 12, we get back together again for the next one. Okay. 25 minutes. Thanks.
Thank you. Well, thank you guys. Thank you guys. Thank you.
20 minutes is okay, huh? Let's start at quarter after. Just get a coffee and then let's start at quarter after so we won't get too late into lunch. Where is our place? Each organization and each region has to find their place in the ecosystem. Georgi, would you maybe start just a little bit about this idea about ecosystem? Because I know I've heard you talk about it before a little bit. What is the difference between an ecosystem and a networking, or is there a difference?
It's a very complex question, I have to tell you, because for me, ecosystem basically is a local stuff. But we need, let's say, networking, because the local needs want to move somehow. That's the past. And then, but this is also a reflection of globalism. So we are all the time, in a way, the children of the political economic changes. So before, let's say in the 60s, 70s, and the 80s, we were thinking still within our borders on national level. But slowly we started to step out in the 80s and the 90s. The funding system was pushing anyway because of several reasons. And now what I can see that the ecosystem is a question mark now. What we have, globally and locally, so there's a change. So what I can see that the local ecosystem is getting more and more important, not because of the populism and nationalisms too. So it means there are lots of questions, and we have to find answers. And then the main issue now in the ecosystem is, we were talking yesterday about that. What does it mean, the freedom for the artist, and how can we provide a good ecosystem? What are the components of the ecosystem? And if you have an ecosystem, and in Germany, in other countries, how can we connect it each other?
Okay. Natasha, any comments?
I'm somehow not familiar with this ecosystem, I have to say. Well, maybe I would start with network first.
Okay.
Yeah, because my personal experience is that I'm actually the child of networking. First, I borrow the money, go to ITM, and then I met people, and then we actually get known each other, and then we start to work. So I think that it's very important that we know with whom we are working, and if we like each other, if we have common interests, and then the business, or not business, or just pleasure, or whatever. And I would really like to comment on this smallness. I never feel small, even that I come from Slovenian, and even that I work in China or whatever. I think that we are who we are, and we just have to be self-confident that we are 2 million, and that's it. And actually, I think that we are more flexible than any other big nations, because we have to be flexible. That's it. And the network, I think, yes, we can now, let's say, if we can make a network, small network, Baltic, let's say Balkan-Baltic network, whatever. But I find out that by the networking is a little bit problematic, because it's not always working. You know, we can make now like goals, I don't know what, but when we will come at home, or you will come at home, everybody will forget on that, and we are not following. This is somehow a little bit problematic about the network, and it's pity. It's really pity, because but it's also a reality that we can't be so active all the time. But yeah, some discipline is actually missing. But we are all a little bit artistic, and our discipline is not really our strength, let's say. But local network is, I found out also very important, and also very problematic, because most of the time, for example, I am more working with foreign networks than in local network. And I just noticed that these girls from Maribor, they are not really closely working for common, because it's like you have to go a little bit outside of your organization, and you fight for the common goals, for example.
Would you say, if I just follow that, would you say that networking locally is more difficult than networking internationally? And in that case, why?
Yeah, it looks like, because it's competition. That's why you have to forget. And I also think that you can't work everything in networking, but some common, like to work with the politician and advocacy, it's absolutely necessary. That is networking.
Could we say that a condition for networking is that we share things?
It's only about sharing. It's
exactly.
only about sharing.
So if you're keeping secrets, then you can't have a network.
Yeah, no. and actually I don't understand really why the people are afraid, because together we are stronger. This is, and if I have a little piece of land, and you have another piece of land, you have a big piece of land. This is somehow logic, at least for me. But yes, it's networking. It's all about sharing knowledge, spaces, ideas, and for networking, there are the important people, and only people.
how many of us that are sitting here are members of a network in some kind of formal or informal way? Actually participants, I mean active participants? Okay. All right. So we all are somehow engaged in a network. How many of us would say, like Natasha, that we are children of the networking, that we have been built by it? Push for me. Yeah. Okay. Because one of the things about networks, of course, is that they need to be constantly remade. The problem with some networks, and I think that Georgi and I and Natasha would certainly agree, maybe some of the rest of you here, I came into the world in IETM, sometime actually at the end of the 80s, you know, in the very early time. And it was for me like a whole new world. I suddenly realized, my God, all these people are doing these fantastic things and they have so much to teach me. And I learned and I started to make co-productions and everything started happening. But then there came a point where IETM became very big. And it started to work for the organization that was paying them, which was the European Commission. Now, I don't think that I'm not attacking IETM even in its beauty, but it became on such a scale that it was no longer the learning greenhouse that it was when I was there. Please, take,
yeah. The problem of the network is when it's becoming bigger, it's becoming too formalized. So there is not like we sitting in the garden and talk and smoke and drink, but it's like the official and so on, and we have to sign, and then it's gone.
Yeah.
It's gone.
Yeah. So maybe sub-networks, I don't know. Annika.
What did you want to...
No, I just was thinking about sub-networks because IETM became very large, but actually if it would break down into regional or whatever, then maybe we could get back to some of that informality.
Maybe it doesn't work that way. I mean, it has to
come
from the
underneath.
grassroots.
Yeah.
No? That's the problem with it.
What has networking meant for you in Estonia, which is a small country? It needed to open some windows and doors to other places?
I don't know. Actually, I had some reactions on while you were speaking. I realized that I perceive networks as a tool in order to feed the local ecosystem, basically. And I was also thinking about the smallness. In our case, also our venue made a decision 10 years ago, a very tough decision that we stay small. And the reason behind it is that we saw it as a way to keep our uniqueness and to go into depth. And then I had a reaction on the word of competition because it appears much more often than I expected, actually. And as an opposition to this competition, I would think of the words complexity, multiplicity, and complementing each other.
This is an interesting aspect. Can networking work against the negative aspects of competition? Because I think when many of you use the word competition, I'm not sure you mean it in the same way that Pepsi-Cola and Coca-Cola are competing with one another for a market. I think we're talking about, actually, when we're talking about competition, we're talking about benchmarking. I want to know, I want to see a high-quality work so that I can compare my work to that and say, wow, they really captured something there. I'm trying to get there too. You're inspired by people doing better work and work that's challenging. But I don't feel it's competitive. When Jan Lauvers and Need Company do a fantastic performance, I don't sit there and think, my God, they're my competition. I have to keep my secrets. I have to try to do something better than them. I think, thank you for the inspiration, and I can carry on. But competition is where you're trying to kill the other one or trying to beat the other one. Benchmarking is when you're allowing yourself to compare yourself to others. And I think that there's a difference. Annika?
No, I had a reaction on this benchmarking issue because I think it's problematic, because then we would have to agree on the same values or the same qualities. What I consider a valuable work in Estonia necessarily doesn't have the same reaction in France. Right. It needs a different effort, again, from both sides to correspond to each other. And I think this is a kind of a challenge with the East or with the countries who are a bit isolated, which we have to overcome. But for that, there needs to be energy from both sides, the effort or the interest from both sides.
If I can, it's just the sub-networking issue, but I think it also feeds on what you just said, because I also feel that we don't need to be translated what we're saying. I think it's very clear to us, at least, what we're talking about. But you were saying today, I think, about Trans-Europe Halls, this very big network of independent or semi-independent spaces. So it's, in the past 3 years, our space, Magazine, it has become a member of this network. And this only became a possibility when a person from this region became a board member in that network. And that person wanted to work on using the infrastructure of something that is a big capitalist structure with people who are paid for their work, with people who depend on this structure in the sense where you're getting your salary from the TEH. And this never would have happened if someone said, okay, so let's take some of this money, some of this power, some of this strength of this structure, and let's focus it towards the ones that can't fight on that level, like directly influencing the policies of public civil partnership and so on. So I think in this sense, like when we're talking about networks and sub-networks and these like small structures that may come out of this, ITM is also a humongous structure. I mean, let's be honest, like we're not talking about same things when we're talking about a Balkan or a Baltic network, come on. But I think that in this sense, like we can learn from them in terms of what they managed to do, but they also did it with numbers. I mean, they didn't do it by being, I don't know, God-given or something like this. I mean, I just kind of feel that when you're ready, I mean, if we're talking about this east-west or now north-south, I mean, division, we kind of need to talk about this, like letting go of power, taking the power. I mean, not to just kind of, you know, like sitting there waiting for someone to notice you, for them to be your art parent or whatever. I mean, this is something that's kind of, that is a struggle. And in the networks, if there isn't at least an awareness of what needs to be done or what needs to be fought for, I'm not sure if it can go on with this constant growth and taking over, because what we are saying that competition is that someone becomes so big that they obliviate the whole area, all of the other actors. I mean, this is happening in my own country, like with contemporary dance. There is one private festival that 4 years ago got 65% of the dance budget. Like, what are we talking about? Come on. I mean, this is competition. I'm not talking about benchmarking. I mean, growth in this sense is something that I think we all understand that can be up to a point, and that your decision was to stay small. And it is a difficult decision. It is a difficult decision to kind of not go for more money, not go for, you know, to I don't know, disregard all the others, but to put yourself first in a very kind of, I don't know what way, but selfish, let's call it, or whatever. But I think if you stay small, if you kind of understand that working together, if there are 10 people working together, then, I mean, there's Istok was saying yesterday about their own network. I mean, they all pitch in 2,000 euros and then they have 20,000 euros. I mean, it's something, that's support. But if you did it locally with 2,000 euros for someone, what are you doing? I mean, it's, so that's what, yeah.
I'm thinking about this staying small and networking, because in fact, let us try to make also a difference between the word franchising and networking. Franchising is when a company extends itself and then opens up new centers in other places, all of them connected hierarchically to the center. Yeah, it decides the framework, it decides the thing, and then you use it, so you just get more distribution points. Networking is actually small, independent, but making ourselves bigger, not by making our organization or our festival or whatever bigger, but making ourselves bigger by connecting to other small things. And I go back to this, you know, I mean, as a former man of resistance, I was about to say, but I mean, when I look at guerrilla strategies, it's many small units in the jungle coordinating their actions, but they would never bring together all of their soldiers in one place because they know that at that moment they're vulnerable. As soon as they all come together, they will be destroyed. But as long as they maintain their independence, but coordinated, then it becomes a kind of networking and probably a more effective form of resistance. Giga.
Yeah, I'd like to comment on two things here. Maybe this growing, because we also have it in there, and this smallness. And I think it's important to say, because there's a lot of course, these ideas now for deep growth and things like this. So growing, yes, of course, this capitalistic idea of always expanding somewhere, expanding the land, expanding the money, and so on. I think here the idea is, which is also this kind of nature idea. So this means the sustainable way of growing. So it means like grass, of course. Now, grass is not like growing in height, like Olga also said, but it's sustainably alive. So it's always regrowing, let's say. So it's always staying alive. It's always there. It's flourishing, right? It exists, and I think that's a much more sustainable way, and it's not in a wrong way to take away the land of other plants and things like this. At least not in a too large extent. And the second thing, which is always still present, I think, in our conversation, is this not comparison with the West, but trying to get noticed, let's say, by the bigger markets. And I think it's something that it really should be finished, right? So why try to promote Baltic artists to French producers or networks or things like this? I don't understand it. Why not? Why, if you promote it, why not promote it somewhere? I don't know, in Balkans, let's say, if we were here, or in China or wherever. Why always go to the established markets and try to make a mark there where everybody goes and where the system is different, so on. So I think one of the aims was here also how to go a bit away from this what makes like sense, of course, not to go where the money is, the biggest money is, the biggest market is, but on the other side, that's old market. It's old ways of doing things. It's oversaturated market, right? So if we go back to the economy. Coca-Cola, Pepsi-Cola, one of the first steps is to see how much oversaturated the market is, where you go to make a company, to make I don't know, the mobile phone company or whatever you're doing. You see how oversaturated it is and how to position yourself there.
Okay, I will comment now because of this another market and so on, because I am a little bit different, because I am fed up of West. It's somehow, I know that we are on the line, but it's boring for me. So I actually, because I'm curious, I really went to, also with my festival first, to present our public the different arts from Africa, China, and Middle East. And then I went myself and also with the artists to check how there is. And actually I found out that there is much bigger market than is West, that people are really hungry of our knowledge. That's why, I'm working there, and that we are actually really a little bit blind about that there are still different markets which maybe need us more than West. I want to say about that, about the networking also. In Africa, for example, they don't have queue. They're really working, really only me. So yes, I have task to somehow teach them what it means working together.
Annika?
No, just listening to you, I realized maybe networking is something which is more natural for the smaller ones, because in order to make yourself bigger or in order to expand more, you can use the tool of networking for your benefit, not struggle alone.
I think that's an important comment that was made. Networking is especially valuable for the smaller flexible organizations that Olga and other people were putting forward, it becomes especially valuable for the smaller organizations. The larger you become, the more networking becomes a franchising in some way. Expanding, you know, when Avignon Festival and Edinburgh Festival go together in a kind of network, it's just basically to strengthen their own positions or to establish their own positions, whereas networking in the way I think we're talking about. I would like to just ask one more question about this. Is networking primarily for artistic development or is it for market development? Because these are two different things. My feeling is most of my artistic development or idea as a producer, have come from networking. And it's been the way that I have developed my approach to how to make relevant, valuable artistic work. And networking was a way of opening up windows that I didn't look through before. Whereas when it becomes only a market, I have to say that networking hasn't been that much of a market tool because it requires other things. It may be some distribution, but not necessarily a tool. So is there a difference between the artistic development that comes from networking and the market development? Moitza, do you want to?
Yes, I agree. Well, my opinion is that it is a different. Consider also to the size of the organization who are in the network. If, for example, my experience was that if you are starting, if you have a network of different organizations, small and bigger, you know, and if you start for the market, my experience that usually the bigger are collaborating with bigger. It's economy attraction, a law of the what attracts other, it's money. So, but if you start, for example, from artistic, it has to be a really precise awareness with whom do you choose. So you go over this economical statement. That's my experience. I just wanted to say that so that's why it's very important why the network is established. That's my opinion. So why is the reason that who will join the network and which are the criteria that that organization are entering into the network? Because my example in Slovenia, we had one example is that we have a network for Slovenian contemporary dance, but it came from the reason that we want to participate for the common space. We got some money from Ministrstvo za javno pravo, kako se to reče? Pomagajte mi. Yes, Ministry of Public Affairs, and it was more like advocacy and like check the facilities about the work, you know. But it happens like this: when the money were there, we were doing, and when money has gone, we stopped doing, you know. So it was really short example of the network, you know, not sustainable, you know. And so this is very important when you establish the network, like criteria for the entering, and also to say to you, we do collaborate in Maribor. It's in one project, Mamo, and we have 5 different partners. They are leading. They are leaders. They are leading the project, and I think it's really good idea because it's 5 different partners, like 2 organizations from public sectors and 3 organizations from non-government. My institution is inside, and that each partner are offering the performance like a regular year repertoire. So we do collaborate. Yeah.
Okay. Sanja.
I want to connect our tools and this a little bit, because for me, I belong to a couple of networks and my company, and also locally and internationally. And what is very important for me, it's a platform for inspiration. You really get inspired by the examples and case studies of others, you know, what others are doing. I connect it also with advocacy, because sometimes our local stakeholders are really, you know, when you present, there are such great examples of how people, how the governments fund amazing projects and things that are happening, then they feel a little bit like, if they can do it, then maybe we should do it also. You know, it's this strange philosophy. They value more something that's going on abroad. Another thing is also there is an alternative way of organizing networks. I don't know ITM, but I belong to network of, it's about drama education, and the thing is we are not funded at all and we are not a formal network. The thing is that it's called Idea Europe. We meet every year in a different country. The person who provides the hospitality provides only a space and maybe coffee for the break, and if he gets funding or she gets funding, maybe a dinner or cooks the dinner, and people come, pay their own travel and so on, and it's really thriving. People are really finding ways to come. If you don't have money to stay, they will find a place. Sometimes I go and my ticket is paid I'm teaching a workshop there. And from this money, they have paid my ticket. You understand? The people pay before. So they are different. And it's really, for me, it's even a more successful model than other networks where I belong, that you have to pay an annual fee or something. So so this connects with the tool of advocacy. Also subversive things, how people subversively get funding or do things. You also get inspired because you hear their examples. This is it.
So for me, we are talking much more about the stratification of networks, because at the beginning was the ITM, and that time when the Trans-European House started, I was member of it only for 2 years, and then I stepped out. Why? Because I was not interested in. So whenever I join to any network, there's a common interest. If there is no common interest, you have to leave it. So I was never interested in growing anyway, but I see that if I look around the landscape, the growing is a part of evolution. Yes, he wants, or that institution wants to make a big step, okay, they can do that. I step back very often anyway, because I got many invitations to join, and so on. And so now finally, after 4 years, we joined the European Dance House Network. You know, so what's the benefit? If that's a question, you know, so lots of question marks. It can be useful, less, and so on and so on. So I guess you have to be very clear what you need. What does it mean? Your need. As I represent an institution, so my need is what is the need of my community with whom I work. If you're an artist, probably what you need personally, and that's the big difference for me.
Okay, let's stay on this, because now we're looking at different ways of networking. There is the formal network and the informal network. The formal network usually grows from an informal network, and then it becomes a membership fee, and then they get some money from the Commission or from the European Cultural Foundation, and suddenly there's an office. And that office, with the General Secretary and some other people, they become our spokespeople, and we follow. Now, this is the nature of hierarchies. As soon as we elect, I mean, if we decide to make a network here today, but we elect Giga as our president, then we start expecting Giga to do the work. And Giga will then have to write the statements that we then agree to. And if we don't like what he's writing, then we leave his organization, and it becomes Giga's network or whatever. Which could be cool if Giga is really smart and we can all ride on his tail. But in reality, it's finally it's a disempowerment rather than an empowerment. So I like your comment about the network as an inspirational platform. That's one. I think the informality, and I think we should keep these different ways of networking in our minds before we go into the afternoon when we wrap up, or we say even get started in some way, to think about what is the informality of this network, because there is this danger that if everybody goes home and forgets it because nobody feels responsible, then the network doesn't evolve. Yeah. But if we elect somebody to do it for us, then we disengage. We become passive. So how do we remain active and at the same time informal? And this is a balance that we. So again, a common need. I think Georgi said it, quite well. That when it's no longer useful for me, leave it. And if it's useful for you, engage, do something for it. This is a difficult balance. Someone, please, Georgi.
It's only a comparison when I was a leader, because I'm not the leader, Trafo, I would like to underline it. But during the 18 years, if I had a problem, you know, in management, I want to develop it. So I went to a bookstore. But before identifying what's my problem, I wanted to find, let's say, 2 words to formulate it. And I went to the business section, and I was looking for management development books, and I was looking for the same words, you know, the 2 words. And very often it happened to me. So I guess networking is a little bit, when I look at it, okay, so choreographers need this kind of development, okay, I can find there some resources, not only money, knowledge, and they can learn, you know. So somehow, this is so important to go the direction. Maybe you don't know, would it happen exactly. I joined, for example, a network funded by EU, European, how is it called? The Creative Europe. Yeah. That was the subject that it was very interesting to me, the crisis of producing and what's the future. And finally, you know, so it was a big failure, because the partners, they were, let's say, my same age. They were talking about all the time about the same stuff. You know, I would like to listen to the younger ones, because we started in the 80s. We know how was it working in the 80s, but now this is a different time. You know, so it's better to make a mixture all the time. So finally, we couldn't succeed at all, and since then they don't speak to each other. You know, so they were so offended to each other. So it was really ridiculous. But I started to work with them. You know, it was a tryout, the same idea, but it was something else.
It's interesting what you say about networking, because at one point one of us said here that networking is when you go together with people who share the same interests. But in reality, my feeling is that the best networks are the ones where I'm with a bunch of people who don't share it's the diversity of it. Yeah. And this is why when I mentioned yesterday our project Corners that Natasha and I worked on, you know, we had the Arts Council of Northern Ireland as one partner, and we had Exodus in Ljubljana as another partner. We had a little organization and big organizations, and they worked very well together because they told each other different stories. And we had multiple narratives that we could choose the best from. The other thing that I would like to say about the network is, so I think diversity is more important than shared perception. The perception comes later. The most important is to be in a situation where you are challenged. Because if, and the other thing I would like to just say about networking is that, well, no, go ahead, Sonia, yeah. Please.
What I want to say is this is a difference. You know, is it an artificial network because you've got money to create a network, or is it comes from a common need of the people? And I just want to say also that I'm usually a representative of also some organization. They're not institutions, but they are companies, or they're Center for Drama in Education and Art. Also CEDEUM, this is another organization. So rarely I'm an individual there, but there is also, I just want to again stress this model of Idea Europe, because we don't have a hierarchy. We don't have Giga leading it or somebody leading it. We have something we call COCOs, like Coordination Committee. It's funny because I'm also a COCO, and it's only about who is committed to do the work as a volunteer and help with the organization of the meeting. And this is it, you know. And I think now we have 7 COCOs. It can be 20 COCOs, we don't mind. But just who is willing to work? And this is how we function. It has nothing, we have no, you know, like something from this. We just work. And this is, we are called COCOs, yeah.
What I find here interesting is these 2 concepts of one, to have like some urgency, and so the network becomes immediately, and you follow this urgency and you try to solve it, and as soon as you solve it, it just disperses, which is, I think, it's okay. That's quite good way to do it. And the second one, it's not just the problem that there's a president of this network or something like this, but it's also that when you start the network, then you start, then you need to do something with it if you want to have it alive. So you constantly have a pressure of, okay, so we need to do a conference, we need to do something, right? And I think that happens to most of the networks. And I think that's not the way to do it, because it's, again, it's forced, and it just gives you more time to do things, and you have a lot of time to do. I think it's more important to find a system of you know, getting to know each other. You know, what do we do, and then you know, if you have an idea, if you want to start something, or if you want to yeah, go with an idea, then you know which people you can ask for the help, or maybe to start a network or whatever. But for this smaller part which you want to do, I think that's much better than like having a whatever formal or informal network, even with constant tasks of you know, trying to keep it alive, I would say.
This is please remember this idea that one forms a network around a concrete challenge or need, and the network works to solve that. And when the network has either solved it or found it cannot solve it any longer, it disbands. This idea of that we have to maintain something, and then we have to redefine the network's identity. And I don't know how many times I've said in IETM meetings, I'm sure Georgi as well, you know, where the discussion, the whole group was, what is IETM for, you know? And again, year after year after year, we discuss, well, if you don't know what it's for, what the fuck are you doing here? Excuse my language, you know? So I like this idea of we need, we do. And when we don't need it, we do something else. The idea of a network which is, or networks which are constantly growing and falling. This is an ecosystem, in my opinion.
Yeah, but you know.
Yes.
Small comment.
Please, come and join us.
Small comment, and I was already down.
Yeah, but sit there again.
Small comment because. Okay.
It's working.
Okay. I like. According to you, like it's very nice program in the Nordic Council. Like you can get money for the meeting, for the networking, and the short period, one year, and for the long period, 3 years. No performances. No, it has to be networking. Drinking, meeting, eating, sleeping. That's like I start my project for talking, 45, dancing together, 45 project. Because like our generation, yeah, we're a little bit tired of this doing in this kind of ruins. We like to stay in the normal hotel, to have normal proper food, and we got money for this. And they told no performances, networking. Super.
Yeah, I wanted to say a little bit the same in a way, because we have done 25 cultural capital stuff, you know, and I can see the same stuff all the time, and it's a formula, but this is not a medicine anymore, what I feel, you know. Okay, I joined to European Dance House Network, it's okay, good group of people anyway, so we can talk and so on, we can share experiences. We more or less will step out from ITM, of our ITM2, I have to tell you. So we are a member of, I don't know, what, another organization or platform, whatever. But the question, what's the future of this? You know, for example, in the economy, I'm economist, sorry. So we are talking all the time about the national market, but the companies are supranational. You know, that's a conflict, because your politicians try to do something, but your politicians cannot direct the process anymore, or govern the process anymore, because those are all supranational. You know, and probably, and for example, the company which you think it's a British and American, they pay taxes somewhere else. So somehow that's in my mind. Also, I try to read and listen to the radio news and discussions that. So I guess maybe in the future won't be Slovenia or Hungary or whatever. So we'll be a big huge system, you know, and some people will say, speak the same language. But I think everything is melting. Is it good or bad? I don't know. But somehow in the funding and the system what we have, we can see that in the 80s, in a French dance company, everybody was French. In the Swedish dance company, everybody was Swedish. And now it's over. So somehow I bring it up. So we are trying to think in very different way, but the economy dictates in a way. So the question is that when we were talking yesterday about the hippies, so the hippies had a chance to step out from the society and follow their own rules, create their own rules in a way, but the market had filled up these white spots or whatever. And there's a question now, where's the freedom of the artist, and how can we have it with the networking now? That's our question. I don't know the answer at all. Of course, to stay small, that's a kind of answer, but it means I stay away from the market, which I understand. But anyway, it's too simple answer. Because if I look around, everything is about going ahead. So anyway, so that's why I would like to listen to much more the younger generation who are not speaking so much. But they are not so much experienced how to resist the economy.
Yeah, I know. No, I had a lot of comments yesterday that I didn't put out because it's still a threshold to come and sit here at the table and speak and all of this. Now, I just wanted to respond directly to your last comment that it's too simple to withdraw and stay small. And I think it's a genius idea to do that, or not even an idea, it's a necessity. That, of course, has to happen in all society and not just one festival that does that. Because one of the main things also about yesterday, we were talking about traveling, how it changes without the airplane traffic and so on. In order to gain power for people that don't have it yet, you also need to provide the space for it. And the decision to stay small gives a space for other things to grow. And also in the same sense, I think that ecosystem is a better term than network, because network is already something between entities that are already in the network, and what about the ones that are not there yet? And in the ecosystem, I feel it sounds more like there's something that can grow, come in new, can grow new, and also to have the expectation in the system that something else unknown yet can flourish. But in the network, it's a question of accessibility that I also didn't put yesterday. Because also we talk a lot about the art, like there was a lot of talk about the artists that are better than the others, which ones do we choose? And I would like to think more about what needs to be talked about in the art, and then it doesn't matter so much who's actually doing this job. Of course, it's very personal making art, but also I see many times people that are established, and we always expect they come out with another amazing piece, another amazing great idea. Maybe it's not the same person again. Maybe for once it's someone else. Then they come back. I mean, we talked about Jérôme Bel yesterday. Why do I have to see Jérôme Bel in 20 different European countries in 1 year? Like when I go to Lisbon, why do I need to see him there? And maybe, I'm talking a lot now because maybe this kind of reducing airplane traffic is also a chance to come back to a more local scene that maybe Jérôme Bel in 1 year is only in the Balkans, but then in that year he gives space for other people in Scandinavia, let's say. Yeah. There was a lot of thoughts in one. But
Good thoughts.
Just very briefly, so it comes to that, let's say, speculation that maybe the networking and touring will come back a bit the same practice what we had in the beginning of the 19th century. When, for example, Isadora Duncan was living 1 year in a country and then moved, educating and so on and so on. So So that kind of mentality, which is coming mostly from the climate change, it means slow down and work differently. The residency, teaching, and performing it's together using much more simple vehicles and much more community, much more locality. Somehow, that's my feeling anyway after so many discussions.
One of the things that Giga brought up to me when he presented the conference idea here, we started talking about growing your own markets. And I realized that a lot of networking has gone about trying to reach out to be able to tour more, to be able to be more mobile, to reach new audiences, because you think, okay, my audience is too small, but if I can get into the German market, the French market, and not just for money, but also for having enough audience, because you want to meet as many as an artist. But what we forget is that and the climate change does change that, it changes our mobility, is that actually in our very local context, even here in Ljubljana, there's millions or hundreds of thousands in Slovenia of people that have never seen your work. And still, you still have a whole own market to grow. You don't need to say, well, okay, I've gotten my 1,000 people in Slovenia who will see contemporary dance, so that's finished. So can I go to Hungary and reach your 1,000 people but there's another 1,000 people in Slovenia that have never seen this contemporary dance. So growing audiences is something about the same as growing markets. And I'm a big fan of this idea of thinking in terms of audience development. And I know that a lot of people are opposed to it because they think that it's somehow restricting the artist. It's making them think about what people want rather than what she or he wants to express. I don't think there's a difference. I want to express that which is relevant for my audience. So I have to know my audience to understand what's relevant for them. And here I want to just finally return to Georgi. I'm probably one of the older people here. When the '68 movement, when this began, I was just a kid, but I looked around and we all looked around and said, hey, it's not going right, let's do it ourselves. And we created our own rules. We created our own company. We had collectives all over the place. You could always have some place to live. You didn't need Airbnb. You just call up a friend who lived in a collective, who had a sofa for you. We shared. And we shared without any guilt about the fact that we were leaving the system. And we shared without any feeling that the system would have been better, but we're outside of it, so we're victims. No, we thought we had a much better way, and that the rest of that would just fall apart. Because we had an idea about a revolutionary, a radical way. I'm waiting for this moment to come again.
No, I have to jump now because we are not in 16 anymore, and I have a little bit problem here because we are now, like talking like back to the future. Né? Also, you are like back to the future. I mean, could we go a little bit? The word futurology, that we should think what we can do different, not what we already did. I like Slovenia, but I'm sorry, I would not just play with my artists for Slovenian audience. I have to research the word and meet the other people also abroad. So I am against closing the border, and yeah, we have to find another means of transport for sure.
I didn't want to close.
Yeah, I just want to say,
borders,
we are trapped in one pattern.
You have to tap on someone's shoulder, Akad. Kick anyone else out. It doesn't matter. No, yeah, but still, come and sit down with us.
I just want to reflect on the growing audiences. It's a very important thing. It is proved that actually children that have experienced art, had dance classes or drama classes or any other classes, will be a ready audience of the future. You know, I think it's really important to know. It is about building the cultural scene and having people interested to go to see a performance. This is what I know. You don't agree, Olga? Okay, you can tell your experience. So I think this is why we should really think about good quality art education. This is what I'm interested in.
What I feel is that we have the risk, our generation, to build up what you say, these ruins. So for a constructive ecosystem, we need we need you to share the information. I mean, to share the experience, and because you can step away and to look over these all years and to have a conclusion what is working and how to support, what to give to the next generation and what we will give to the next generation. So this ecosystem, because each generation think they are the smartest and they do this mistake, and after it come another generation and you become old and your dream is not coming true. So I think the ecosystem is very important to build up between generations.
Just comment to the Sanya, about if we have dance studios, if you have dance schools, we thought we will dance it.
Going into schools.
You mean art, but this is different. Okay, this is different. Anyway, but yeah, because like in Latvia we have, I don't know, 600 dance companies, just traditional dance companies, 1.5 million people, more than 600 adult dance companies, more than the same kind of senior dance companies. It's just traditional art, yeah. And I didn't talk about the hip hop, and I didn't talk about the ballet, yeah. But then when you go to this kind of presentation competition, the kids never see each other. They dance and then go. They dance and then go. They dance and they go. Like I thought about it like many years. Like we go have studios, we teach, but they never go to the performances. They never even go to the hip hop performances. They never even go to the traditional. No. They dance. They did the job and they go away. Like in Latvia, the people actually, they would like to participate rather to see. You know, maybe it's very good for community, for like art and education, like everybody, I mean, coming back to artificial intellect, everybody will be artists in 10 years, you know. This is, sorry.
Only if you take her place.
Yes, sorry. I'm sorry, I have to answer to her. It is the problem of the festival organizers, because we have a festival called Mater Terra for children and young people. The children are obliged to watch each other, because the whole purpose of the festival is that we all sit in one big circle at the end. They're teachers, parents, children, and we discuss what they saw. And this is the, you know, I would never allow this way that you just do your thing and leave. I mean, I'm sorry I'm doing this. It's a digression. We shall not talk anymore about it, but this is what I'm thinking. Good quality art education and in schools, not commercial studios or, you know, stuff. Okay. Sorry.
Hello. I also have lots of things to say at the same time. I was thinking about everything that was being said here, and I have the impression that in order to improve, we have to be able somehow to leave the comfort zone. But which parts do I leave? I mean, maybe I want still to be touring, or do I want to, in my own place, get out of my traditional places where I show my work? Am I able to show my work in an open space instead of a theater? Which kind of audience do I want? Do I want to educate the audience and confront myself with people that are not used to performance art or dance? About the money and exchange of goods, I'm also thinking that, of course, we all need money to survive, unfortunately. But I think that also which kind of things do we want to support? Like, do I want to pay a place to stay, or do I want to do an exchange with another artist, or the funding that I get to my work, which kind of funding do I want? Do I really like this partner and what this partner represents in terms of economy, or would I accept to work with the support of, I don't know, like in South America, they are really bad for the environment, for Nestlé, for instance. Which kind of networking do I want to build, and how can I connect all these dots? Because I think we are in a moment that we really need to connect all these dots of networking, funding, touring, and bring it in a way that is more sustainable as well, because I think that we kind of missed answering Jesus' question yesterday about the sustainability of what we do and what we want to bring to the future generation of artists or audience. Thanks.
Thank you. Am I here? Yes? Hello? 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 Yeah. I just want to respond. I think it's very good comments that were made here, and we're coming to the end here now because we're hungry for lunch. I just want to respond just very quickly. What I meant was absolutely not going back to the future. I really don't believe that we didn't solve the problem then, and there's nothing that... But I do want to point out just a couple of things. One of the things that happened then was that many of us started to find new ways of working because we no longer believed that we had anything to do with the old ways of working, so we had to invent from zero. So what did we do? Well, one of the things we did at that time, and many, many group theaters were created who lived collectively. Why did they live collectively? Well, that wasn't only ideology, but we happened to have been in a time when that ideology was also possible. But in fact, we moved in together because it was cheaper. When we lived collectively, we didn't have to pay salaries to each other and pay the tax on it and everything else. We covered our costs. And we covered our costs very well. We lived very well as a company in that time because our living expenses were lower, because we had managed to find a collective way of solving our problem. It's because we didn't believe that there was any system that was for us. We had to create our own system. Let's go back to that, growing our own markets. I don't believe that there is a system there that we can beat, that we can enter. We have to stop seeing ourselves as the victims of an unfair entertainment industry. We are not the victims of an unfair entertainment industry. We are the opposite of this entertainment industry. And we have to stand for it, which means we have to find other ways of working, democratically, cooperatively, collectively, networking, because we have to create a parallel system. It's an old anarchist phrase, to build the new world on the ashes of the old. We don't want to reform the old so that there's a place for us, so I can sneak in and get a job as a director of a festival, even though I'm radical because I somehow got away with it and snuck my way into it. No, I want to create a parallel system. And that parallel system grows while the other one starts to fall apart. Because it will fall apart. It is falling apart. Look at the quality of pop music today. You know, it's commercially viable temporarily, but it's not creating a lot of huge, deep impact on anyone. And I believe that we can create a bigger impact by going parallel and not trying all the time to focus on why aren't we allowed. We are allowed. We can do anything we want. Huh? Well, that's what this whole 2 days was about.
So I would just like because it's time. We find out that we are in the right place, in the right time, just before to start something new. So first now lunch, and then we have a wrap-up meeting. 2.5 hours to think what we can do now.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a good lunch.
So what time shall we finish the class? 4.
Yeah, 4. and because this should be first time global, and then the other. Actually, our first concept is rather that we should have a global and then one day for regional. I mean, but it's because of the fallout, so that we decided, okay, let's go first regional and then we have global. And then it's also the question, how we can connect now, what we did it now, we find out now, and maybe in the year, that we can connect then to the global where will be like, also West and all these things. So maybe we can a little bit more discuss also about the topic and on how we should develop the things for the next conference. Because this is like balance.
Okay. But that thing which I can experience in our region, that let's say the major institutions, so somehow they're not motivated all over. So when if I go to Prague, I don't experience that here, but here I try to, they're not with us. I guess it would be important. I try to work with them, we'll do something, but I guess this is, we have to convince the big, how would you say that? Big houses, big partners, because, we, for example, we really try to not financially support, but bring them into to facilitate them, so somehow that's very important. That's the different attitude. It's important for us that the community is very mobile. They can do something. There's a new plan. There's something else all the time. And if there is no a generator, that's a very big lack of the community. And it's in our region. I experience that this is very essential and very dominating.
Yeah, because they don't need us, They really don't need us. I mean, they don't need smaller player. They go to the conference, to the big festival, they choose 3 or 5 artists and that's it.
But it means the arts community is not connected to the institutions. And because that's a question, what is the artistic choice there sometimes?
Yeah, but I think that also they don't know. Independent artists and producer and organization, we are really very well know how to work together. To co-produce, and they don't.
No, I think it's a very good point, but it's also something that we've been developing for the last 5 years quite deliberately, and to work with institutions, and it takes time to do it. But we're sitting now in an institution that's a National Museum of Architecture, and they're also financing it's in a partnership with them, with the Center of Creativity, and also where this festival is happening is collaboration with there's a museum for graphic arts, which is also a national institution, and it's a long-term partnership. And Tsankaro don't meet with us on the festival every day, people from there. And they were supposed to be here. In the last minute they said, okay, we don't have time, but next time they will be here. So but it takes time to do it, right? But yeah, of course, I also think that that's very important. But there should be a healthy collaboration, not just to do it because it's there now. But it takes time, yes.
I raised one more question. Basically, we're just making a kind of shopping list here of different things that we could do together, and then we'll find out which ones will be important by the fact that if you follow it up. If you start writing each other, even if you only write a couple of the people that you met here, because those are people that you especially felt you could get some help from, at least something is starting to roll. But I write there about from sharing artists that I think we need to do and could do, and this is the best gift we can give to the artists, is that we who are presenters and or co-producers and or initiators or have spaces or venues, that we help the artists to get to be known and understood by our colleagues. So this is a great gift that we can do for for our artists, even if we don't go into any formal touring relationship. Just that I let you know some really interesting stuff that should be shown in Bucharest, and I give you an opportunity to get to know them too. If it fits your needs, yeah, go on. If it doesn't, at least I shared it. But there's another aspect here, and this is collaboration around external financing. This is there. We are aware. We are aware that there is a program called Creative Europe. There are programs like from the European Cultural Foundation, from Soros, Open Society. I mean, there's a million different, not a million, but there's many different financing possibilities that require international partnerships in order to apply. Can we collaborate on this kind of thing? Is there one of us who is exceptionally good at making such applications, who can offer their time as part of the time bank? To help with a cooperative. It's here that could be the growing ground for external financing applications. Here begins, for me, in the first years of IETM, it was there that I made my first, it wasn't called Creative Europe, but Kaleidoscope, as it was called at that time, the EU cultural program. The first people I turned to were the people I met at IETM to be partners, and it was very successful. We had many European projects since during 20 years that developed. So here is a pool of people that you can turn to start to look for external financing. This is something we can share, or you can just contact individual. I call Nika and say, Nika, I've got an idea I know that you might like. I feel like I'm pulling teeth just a little bit, and I don't want to do it, but I'm not sure where you want to take this, really.
I mean, to do something like this, I think it would be again formalizing the thing, so apply for external funds. And I think that's not necessary. It's more important that there's an environment, ecosystem necessary. And as if somebody wants to work with, if somebody wants to work with another organization, they can invite them with an idea and things like this, but not as a general, yeah.
I mean, we all spent a couple of days here together, and we all got some gigs, we saw some nice performances, we ate some dinner, we ate some lunch, we talked, we learned something. What can we do with this now so that this 2 days is not wasted time for us individually? I mean, no, that you don't just come in, use it, and then you never use it again. I mean, that's, what can we use from what happened here that will help us to grow individually? Olga,
I will say what was the starting of this discussion. First time to know a little bit more details about each other. This is will be very helpful also for me, because honestly, I come here to meet other people from other countries that are struggling with the same problems, dance and money, and with continuity, and to meet people who have other kind of experiences and to learn from this, and maybe to find partners for the future projects. So, yes, we need to know a little bit more details about everybody's work.
And this can be done by several things. If at least you can offer us an email list, and even with a website address would be great for the organizations that people come to. And you can find out these kinds of details by writing them directly or by opening their webpage.
Kind of centralization of the...
Or at least just a temporary smorgasbord, that we all put it on the table and then we pick the meal that we want, and then it doesn't have to be formalized.
Can I have
So on the website there already exists.
Can I have some?
Well, actually not yet, but they will exist soon.
Can I have some? Some excuse, some difference between Baltics and Balkans. Baltics quite slow. Like me personally, I need time. I cannot have and cannot bring on the table result now. And actually, I already brought it. Like you can come to Latvia next time with your backpack or with your tent, and swim together and have black sauna and eat smoked fish, and of course dance together and the parties and the night and yeah. But that's like me personally, I need time, and it's amazing. I mean, to meet people and yeah.
I just want to react to what you said. Wasted time. For me, I was really, not provoked, but almost like hurt, because believe me, just this, thank you so much, I want to say, Žiga and Natasha and all of you people here from Ljubljana, because, to make all this, sorry, you and everybody who is in the organization, it is this, to make this incredible effort right now in this very vulnerable time, and to get us together, to talk face to face and to meet the people. It is really amazing. For me, every minute I'm here is well spent. I don't feel at all. And I'm also feeling a little bit pressed as what actually Olga said, result, product, what is it, future, next. We are here and now. And things are generating in all our heads. I think we are all having ideas and who is interesting and who will be the next partner and who I can contact in the future. So I think we need is actually some kind of a mailing list, or, I think we sent our CVs, short CVs, but something, there is information there, what organizations you belong to or what you're doing and developing. So I really think that this is time well spent, and I will be very satisfied if I just leave it with this, with this moment where we are now, with some future things, with all these invitations, and I really hope you come to Belgrade too. So.
And then another thing, you are first. I mean, after Corona, like all of us got the first flight after Corona, and this is like I feel as a hero. I really.
First love.
First love. Yeah. Because this is important to start,
And this is the beginning of the second wave.
Of course.
Next week, 10,000 people will die in Slovenia, which is a big percentage of the little country.
The little country survives.
So I was listening to you guys, and I actually want to say this from the beginning. I was about to suggest to Arcadia to do so. What's next? To sum up a bit the steps that we should take, we as a small team or we as a group, just to collect and exchange the contacts, then to do a small follow-up with each other, to present in a few words what we are doing and ask what you are doing, and to be open to collaboration invitations and just, I don't know, for a visit or for an exchange of know-how. For example, you don't have to participate only at festivals. Maybe Arcadia wants to organize a workshop and then invite one of you. So I think this is one way that this should continue.
Well, we have the website, and it was intended to have and will have CVs from people. So at least we have a bank that we can put things into without too much difficulty, I think. I mean, we're not going to turn it into a massive interactive thing, but it's a static website that will be able to receive the information. This is a good beginning.
And then I think it's up to each other to reconnect with the people they met.
Well, I like very much the idea that some other people would pick up the stafette, the flag, the Olympic torch from Žiga and his colleagues, and invite to your place. And it can be in any context, you know. It might be when you're having a festival, it might be when you're doing a co-production, it might be at a time when nothing is happening so that you have time to concentrate on it. And it's not a complicated thing. I mean, it's not, you know, it shouldn't have to involve large sums of money with some investment of time. But I mean, to give opportunities for you people to meet each other again in an inter-regional way. I mean, Olga has already offered her activities. When is your festival?
I don't know.
Do you have the date yet?
It could be 2
weeks before.
We postponed it to the end of August. You know, this is the right planning. Yeah, we can, of course, we can put in dates. Okay, let's read 5 to 10 in Latvia 2, and then we start to change because of
Well, stay in touch with each other. That's the most important. So. No, I don't want. Okay.
But she's already invited to the festival.
But you can write to me, and then I'll pass it on to her, and you can talk to me, and I'll talk. You know, I know you don't like each other. But. Well, I think that there would be lots of reasons, and I turn to Arkady, and I'm sorry, your name, I forget. Yeah, you know, because I think that Bucharest and Romania would be really important, both for the Romanians and for us. I think it's still, you know, as much as Romania is a large country and has a quite dynamic cultural life, even if the funding situation is not so well developed. But it's a country that still, I think, we're not so much in touch with. As much as we should, neither from the Balkans nor from other places. I'm sorry, yes, excuse me, please, thank you.
At the moment, I'm with 4 other partners. We are preparing an EU application, and with a strong focus on mapping up West Balkan. So it means if we could win, so we would like to invite many people, for sure. I guess that could help also if we would say something, anyway, I believe in certain formulas. So if somebody wants to think in a meeting, the venue or the, so what would it mean the invitation? So maybe we would say that, let's say the hotel must be offered and the rest, the rest of the cost, let's say, we have to cover. So I mean, the flight or whatever, because it's very important. Because then you can start to figure it, okay, it would be nice, though the goal is, the objectives are still obscure, but there's an opportunity, it would be nice, and so on and so on. For me, the problem is that we do the platform, so the institution, Trafo, and we spend 1 month's program money for the 3 days, and it's just enough for the artist, and we cannot cover any guest cost. And to do it, we do it every 2nd year, so we don't have enough money to do every year such a big burden, for example, financial burden. So that's why I could say that if we get a positive answer from the how is it called, cultural something? Yeah, Creative Europe, yeah, then we will do gladly. And when I return, I'm sure you will get all an email asking who are interested in sharing certain companies and so on in the future. And you would like to step into this pool, which is on the Facebook. We throw the info there. There are, I don't know, 36 members already. And if you want to join to us. And of course, maybe it doesn't mean that you have to take those or you will find somebody, but maybe you will find 2, 4, or 3 partners who would be interested in. I guess we have to go through our interest, and it won't be a quick let's say, process, because we are so different. There's not so much money. We don't know each other. But for example, we should say that if there's a Aerowaves meeting, or there's a ITM meeting, or there's a I don't know what kind of meetings, European dance house meeting, and there are people from our circles. We should do small meetings all the time there, not using other resources, because there are resources already, but we don't talk to each other. So that would be a very small step. Okay, let's look for an identity, because our identity is based on collaboration, and the collaboration is the power.
So 4 years ago, when we ran the space, we started to think what kind of events we can run, also to survive, but also to give for the audience and for the artists interesting performances and activities. And that time we were speaking about to do a festival, but we understand it's too early, that we need to grow up and we need to learn from people that already is doing this for many years, and people who have know-how. For example, maybe in the future, in a few years, when we'll be more, when the space will be more stable, I mean, with the money, maybe I will call you, or I will write you to ask I don't know, some information about how to organize a festival, because it's not so easy. And I know it's happened 2-3 days, but you are working 1 year for this, no? So, for example, this will be one kind of, I don't know, useful information. Another is that everybody have different situation political in our countries. So I would like to know more, to travel with my performances and to meet different cultures and different, because every choreographer, when he's doing a performance, have some connection also with political situation from his countries sometimes. Not just international problems, human problems that we all have, but also historical and political things that happen that moment. For example, before to come here, the Parliament of Romania, they vote to not teach in the school sex education. They call it sanitary education. And some friends, they have at the National Museum of Art a concert. There were 2 guys in a dress, a concert about human rights, about LGBT. And on social media, it was a really big scandal, and a lot of people start to say, this is not art, what is art? Why you are doing this? You are not artist, you don't have voice, why are you performing? And they start to put pressure also on them to blame this artist, and to put pressure on the National Museum of Art, who didn't come with an answer for this, but they delete all the video from the site. So this is a, for example, situation that it's happened now, and. There are people who need to see different kind of performances, not just mainstream and big companies.
Actually, I just realized that there is something that I'm really interested in, and that I would like to put in this circle. So if there is anybody else who is really interested in researching the history of the contemporary dance in their countries, but not doing archive, but live research in a way reconnecting with their roots. Who was the first choreographer? Who was the first person who started to do contemporary dance in your countries? You know, how was it developed and how did it progress? And just to connect with the young people now and do maybe things that are initiated with this information about non-material heritage. It is our cultural heritage. This is something that we are developing, and I would really be interested maybe to put it in a European level to make this mapping of the history of contemporary dance in Europe. I don't know. This is just something I put now here because it's one of the topics of my research or projects that we are doing. So the reconnection with the roots, this is it.
Okay, I feel like we're pulling teeth a little bit, and I don't think that that's worth it. I think it's better that we reflect or even talk to each other individually. I don't have something new to come with right now that would, you know, reanimate the conversation. It's we still have some time, but I don't see any reason to force it. If there's something more to be said around this, I think we achieved. I just have to say personally that I really was very honored to be able to be part of this, because I don't represent an organization in either the Balkans or the Baltics any longer. But to be here and to hear your different perspectives really was very awakening for me, and generated a lot of thoughts which I don't yet have in my head, but which I'll try to pass along in the form of some kind of short report to Žiga and Natasha and Nika. But I think above all, we made a commitment to try to keep on meeting each other and share some of these things that can be done. We don't need a formalization. We don't need a new president or anything else. So, well, we do need a
we all need a new
president. But not of this association. Would anyone like to, let's say, round it up from their perspective, or otherwise I'd like to leave the word to Natasha and Žiga and Nika.
But I would just like, no, because I would just like to a little bit wrap up, because I think that we didn't have, we didn't plan to make a project, a new network or whatever. For sure not with this conference. This what we come out is well, nice. I'm sure that we will. This is a small network which we will cooperate on, and if we will be disciplined, maybe we can make even bigger project. I'm just like I think that we should a little bit think, not now maybe, but later. I mean, in the process, what we can do for our artists. Because here is like it was mixed, or we are a producer or we are artists. But because when we stop, I mean, last session with 16, how it was the condition and the way of work in the 60s, maybe, and we should think a little bit about new time, and also I'm a born optimist, of course. But still, what if Corona happen non-stop? How we will deal with this, and who will be on the first flight then? But anyway, otherwise, I would really thank you very much for everybody to come here, because you are brave too, in reality, and see you soon.
I would also like to thank everybody for coming, participating, for all of your interesting thoughts and ideas, and maybe not see you soon, but see you at some point. Yeah.
Well, I'm terrible at this end things. So yeah, I'd like no. So I don't know. I mean, if somebody has some issues which we didn't address, maybe he or she can do it now, I think. But yeah, thanks everyone for coming. It was nice that you were able to come, and see you next time.
Thank you. still a beautiful night at the festival. There's a dinner, of course, at 7 o'clock, and tonight is the longest night, the longest sun. Tonight. Tomorrow. Tomorrow. Oh, tonight is the evening. No. Well, in Sweden we celebrate the evening of the midsummer, which is the night before, because at midnight it becomes the longest day. But in any case, enjoy the midsummer.
Regarding festival, just one more thought. When you come to the Tivoli in the evening, make sure you go past the ticket table. Find me and I will give you coupons for dinner and drink.
Beautiful. Well done. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
My performance yet. No, that's because Jacob didn't program it.